Hello there. So, something I something I'm supposed to do every month, which I haven't been doing every month, is record a Q&A podcast, specifically taking questions from people who support me on Patreon, Coffee, even people who like are Nitro boosters on Discord. Like basically anyone who spends any money to support me in any way, shape, or form. I like to take questions from them, and then I like to answer them in sort of a video podcast format. Haven't done it in a little bit. It's been maybe a few extra days than I'd like, maybe a couple. Anyway, the first question is from April. So let's handle that one right the heck up front. By the way, I used to upload these over on my Let's Play channel, just because that was sort of my second dump channel where I just dumped stuff on for a good long while. But now I have 3B-Sky, so now it goes here because that's more appropriate than the 2B-Sky. 2B-Sky channel can just be for the Let's Plays. So the question is from Anton, who is in chat. Are you a collector? Do you own a collection? If not, what are your thoughts on it as a hobby? I'm sort of a little bit like, I'm the kind of person who really should be a collector, right? Like, I have all of this fucking nerd shit that I'm into, and I have the ADHD impulse shopping impulse, like a gene, right? I impulse shop a lot of things I probably shouldn't. And so I think if I had had more money earlier in life, I would have definitely become a collector. Because I don't think I'd be able to control myself. But now at this point, I'm late enough in life, I have enough control over my ADHD that now that I actually have like a stable-ish income, I've sort of come to a place where I've realized that it's probably unhealthy for me to start collecting now, because now that I have adult money, that could go really bad really fast. I did today just download the Pokemon trading card game app on my phone, where I have made myself a very solemn promise not to spend any fucking money in that app. Collecting, though, is really... I've always admired it as a hobby. Like, so long as it doesn't escalate into hoarding, right? I've always admired it as a hobby because it requires a commitment and a certain level of discipline to do that well, to be a good collector. And it requires curation, it requires an appreciation and a passion for the thing that you are collecting that I think is tremendously appealing as like a personality trait. I think collectors are brought, again, so long as it isn't like a maladaptive coping mechanism in the way that hoarding is, for example, so long as it's not a thing that's like, I'm doing this as replacement for a deep void of pain that I feel inside of myself. In those cases, a collection for me, like people who have that specific vibe with collecting, right? Where it's not about love for the thing, but it's about this thing plugs a hole in my soul. I tend to get a little put off by it. I'm not saying it's like an evil thing. Like, people deal with their problems however they want. I'm not here to judge that. It's just, at that point, I get a little put off as a personality thing. Next question is from Arathane. If you've seen any footage of images of Helldivers 2, do you think the armor design of the game works as is, or do you think there could be more interesting ways to explore it? I haven't really seen that much of Helldivers. What I saw of it was, I honestly think they made a mistake in making the Helldivers look a little too cool. Helldivers is doing a Starship Troopers thing, right? Like, where Starship Troopers, part of the point of Starship Troopers is that the troops look like idiots, right? That's why they are portrayed the way that they are, right? That's why they're portrayed as these like sort of loud, shouty dipshits with sort of very bad TV actor acting, right? And they're supposed to be kind of uncool. Their uniforms and armor and stuff is supposed to look kind of dumb and kind of plastic and clunky and chunky because it's a parody of like the aesthetics of fascism. It's a very, very like harsh parody of fascism. It's a critique of the book that it's based on. Helldivers does the thing where the players get to look too cool. And I think it muddies a little bit of the Starship Troopers riff that it's trying to do. I think it muddies some of the satire inherent to the text. That the players get to look a little bit too cool. Like, it's the same mistake that Warhammer makes as a satire. That, like, yeah, Warhammer 40k is a satire of, like, all of the worst parts of fascism and humanity and, like religious extremism, sure. But also, everything in Warhammer looks badass as fucking hell. It all looks so fucking cool, right? It all looks awesome. So, the satire kind of gets lost. Because it's the thing, like, that's the thing about, like, fascism is a politics of aesthetics. right? Which is why you get fascists who like fixate on media that is explicitly anti-fascist in the text. So long as there's some part of the aesthetic that they can appropriate that flatters their egos, they will simply ignore what the text actually says, right? So if you're trying to make art that wants to communicate an anti-fascist satire, if you want to make art that communicates an anti-authoritarian satire, you kind of have to be a little bit... It's the thing, I think Lindsay Ellis has a video about, the producers and the ethics of doing parodies of fascism, where she points out that, like, one of the pieces, like, a lot of the pieces of media that depict fascists as dangerous and scary get appropriated by fascists for their own propaganda because they feel it flatters them. But stuff that predicts fascists as idiot clown morons doesn't, right? So think of Jojo Rabbit, think of the producers, for example. Anything that makes fascists look like dipshit fucking morons, they can't appropriate that as part of their aesthetics politics, right? So like... to the second part of your question, right? Like, what's a good way of balancing player expression in a game with dehumanization of and uniformity of the player is part of the point. Are they reconcilable? Probably not, really, because the point of cosmetics in video games is empowerment and expression, right? The point is to give you the ability to express yourself, to feel good in yourself, right? Like, they have pride flags in Helldivers, right? Like, which is a form of player expression, empowerment, and validity. And you can't really marry that with an attempt at a satire of fascism because, well, those two things don't mesh. I will say, though, if you allow for a bunch of character customization in a game like Helldivers that directly flies in the face of what fascists like, for example, pride flags, that can be a very effective way to turn them away from trying to appropriate your media, right? So what I'm really saying here is that there should be Sisters of Battle with, like, lesbian pride flags all over their armor. That's like Games Workshop, get in touch. I can be a consultant on this. I can drive all of the fascists out of your fandom forever. Absolutely no problem. Let's see. Sophia, watching your April AMA had me thinking a lot. I'm someone whose special interest is media analysis and critique, and that's been encouraged by and supported by your channel and your content. Well, thank you. I'm glad of that. What got you to do this in a more formatted way and doing it as your career? I mean, it's completely fucking... But it's because I have the cannot shut the fuck up to save my life gene. Basically, like, I was a comic artist. I've spoken about this before. I was a comic artist and commission artist. That was how I made my living for a while. I say a living. I was broke as shit, and I was poor, and I was exhausted and fucked up. But I was making a I was paying my rent. I was paying my rent, basically. And then, like, League of Legends was the thing, my brain rot, right? I had brain rot about League of Legends, and I had all these opinions about the character designs, and I wished that people would engage more with them, and I wasn't seeing anyone else. Like, there were some League content creators, but it was all, like, funny plays and, like, overpowered builds and, like, pro play highlights and all that shit. And no one was talking about the shit that I wanted to talk about, so it was like... Well, fuck it, I'll do it myself then. I just started recording videos, blabbering on, rambling on about shit. Like, mostly the videos I used to do in the early days were the same style as they are here on the 3Bskind channel, which is, I put some images on the screen, I turn on my microphone, and I just fucking go. And I did that so much, and I think I was kind of alone in my niche there. Like, not that there weren't other lore content creators, but I was, like, the only guy who had... character design opinions, and, like, sort of, like, I engaged with, like, the themes and ideas. I say I'm the only guy. I don't know that I'm the only guy. I don't know every League content creator. I think I was more or less the only guy. And then I had... It was an accident. Like, I had a video I uploaded. I think it was about boob plate and character design. I have deleted that video since because I don't really agree with the points I made in it anymore. For some fucking reason... In the algorithm, that one took the fuck off. Got like 100,000 views. I got like 10,000 subscribers on my channel, like, snap overnight. And all of a sudden, the revenue from the channel was just barely enough to pay for my portion of the rent in the tiny apartment I was sharing with someone else, right? And that's the point when I kind of went, okay, I guess I'm doing this now. Oh, okay. I stumbled into this by sheer luck. So the fact that I'm more formatted now, the fact that I've scripted my videos more tightly is because I do this for a living now, and I kind of feel like I should put in more effort than I used to. I should probably have a script and like type out my opinions and put them together in a way that like makes sense, rather than just sit there and ramble into a microphone. And then I made this fucking channel where I can just sit there and ramble into a microphone, and that seems to be apparently also working pretty well right now. But that's why it became more scripted. How do you think you balance the analysis and the persona performer aspect of it? Poorly. Yeah, poorly. I'm better at it now, but like the part of this, of being a public person, of being a performer, a personality, I don't like it very much. It's not very, like, there's a reason why I don't appear on camera, and part of that reason is I don't want none of you motherfuckers to recognize me in public. I'm sorry. Like, if I ever go to events and stuff, I think I'll commission a mask or something that I can wear, so I won't be like recognized from my face or whatever, and like so I can take selfies with people. But I have found that I don't really like being famous, right? I don't really like that. I don't like being recognized that much. I just want to talk and make videos. I don't want to be a celebrity of any kind, right? And it took me a good long while to sort of figure out where my balance is with that. How much do I want to be known versus how much do I just want to make my silly videos and then be left alone? And it's a very difficult thing to balance. Like, every YouTuber I know struggles with it. Every YouTuber you've ever watched probably struggles with it. And there's no education for any of us on how to balance this shit. So, how well do I balance it? Well enough now, I think. If you could snap your fingers and keep your income and your audience base and make videos about literally anything you want, and they'd all do well enough to pay the bills and buy cat toys for the babies, what do you think you'd do differently? Nothing? Yeah, no, I think I'd stop making League of Legends videos entirely. I think I'd get completely away from that. I think I would, like, make fewer shorts. And, like, maybe not review every single Pokemon. Like, just, like, slow some things down, but I wouldn't do anything differently. Like, the only reason why I've lasted this long is because I have insisted to my detriment that I'll do the things I want to do. Which, you know, that's something that comes with a little bit of a cost in content creation, is when you insist you just do what you want to do and you don't do what the algorithm wants, right? So yeah, is there any non-algorithm pleasing topic you'd start giving a lot of mental attention? Like, if I could just not worry about getting copyright claimed and losing the revenue on the videos, I would do a lot more animation content. Like, I would do a lot more just gushing about animation, especially Disney animation. I would have done a bunch of videos on a bunch of Disney movies. I really would. But that's trying to do content about Disney or even anime on YouTube is a fucking minefield, and it's not worth risking my income for me. So yeah. Let's see. That seems to be the same question twice. Okay, did you know there are lakes at the bottom of the ocean? Yes, they're cool. They're scary as hell. They're terrifying. Don't go to the lakes under the ocean. They're scary places, but it's very cool. Have you seen a movie called Samson and Sally? Nope. What are some English words that look like Danish words but have different meanings and pronunciations that you find confusing and amusing? Off the top of my head, I can't necessarily think of any as such. Because, like, Danish and English have a lot of overlap. Because, I mean, we conquered England for a while, and, like, a lot of like, the Nordic influence went into the English language, which is also a Germanic language, like Danish is. So, like, a lot of the words are reasonably similar, right? But I can't think of any that are like, oh, this is a funny difference in interpretation. Like, there's a Danish word or two that looks like English words. For example, the Danish word for ending or end is S-L-U-T, slut. Or, in English, slut. And the Danish word for speed, or for being in the process of going somewhere, is F-A-R-T, which is fart, or fart. Which, you know, there's a Danish town called Middelfart, which is spelled like middle fart, which, haha, very funny. Let's see. The first video I ever watched on my channel is What's the Deal with Bard. I was looking for lore videos, but ended up finding yours. This little background is to ask, what do you think? Do you think What's the Deal will continue with as a staple in the channel? If so, how will it change or not change? Yeah, like, I'm always tempted to do one every time there's a new League of Legends champion, because they are interesting things to talk about. But like I've said, I'm trying to transition away from being specifically a League-focused channel. And that doesn't mean I'll never talk about League of Legends again. Like, still brings in the money. I'm still on Arcane, right? But yeah, what's the deal? I still want to do more of them. I have a few in mind, like I've talked before about I wanted to do Edelgard from Three Houses, which might end up being one for actually all three of the faction leaders because they kind of work as a package. I want to do one for Superman, specifically. Like, I want to talk about the character design of Superman. There's a bunch of superheroes I think would be interesting to deal with. Like Spider-Man Miles Morales would be an interesting one to tackle, like the way that Miles specifically is designed to be different from Peter, but also very much like reflects the Spider legacy, how Marvel has been trying to sort of cram all the Spider legacy shit that they crammed onto Peter down over Miles's head, and how that kind of doesn't really work with him. So like, yes, absolutely, it will continue on the channel. I don't know if it'll be a staple in the way that it has been, but it's something I want to keep doing. I want to figure out how to keep doing. In a related topic, I've always enjoyed your character analysis, mostly past designs, but you are almost exclusively focused on only visual media analysis. Would you consider analyzing strictly literary media? Analyzing written characters and/or stories as a Patreon reward? Or more videos like your Joke Not Joke Taylor Swift one? Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm exclusively focused on visual media analysis. Like, the What's the Deal videos often include writing critiques, like discussions and sort of dissections of the writing of the character specifically. But strictly literary media, like books and stuff, I've toyed with the idea of joining Book Talk, as it were, like of becoming a sort of booktuber a little bit on this channel, actually, like maybe something like that, but not as a main source of income, because there isn't any in that particular market, I'm afraid. Let's see. For some reason, chord progressions, that's Game Hamid, seems to always be the main element of a song that grabs me, with some example being, yeah, Rainbow Connection, All That Ends Well. Yeah. The point is, what kind of commonality songs have, and if you have any recommendations, I want to know what kind of commonality songs like that have, and if you have any recommendations from this. Are you asking me if I know any songs that have cool chord progressions? Because I also don't know enough about music theory to really speak on that. I listen to a song and I'm like, oh, that's a cool song. I don't really think about the chord progression. That's not really something that's in my mind, so I don't know that I have a good answer to this. I did write, and I'll put that in the description, I did write a blog post with 100 songs that I love, which I'm sort of, with a little bit of detail and analysis that I'm recommending. Oh, Rain for Cats, that's very cute. That I would recommend that people listen to. That's about the best I got, though. I don't really know enough about chord progression to be able to recommend songs off of it. Shark did nothing wrong. If you had to make a pokésona, what would it look like? Would it be like an anthro, a fusion of multiple Pokemon, or something else entirely? I mean, Snorlax, straight up. If it's a Pokemon, like, well, half the time Snorlax. Half the time Snorlax. The other half of the time it'd be something else. What would it be? I'm trying to think through. Because, like, there's a few in my head. Half the time Snorlax. I think, like, also, like I've made a honor of myself already, representing myself as the trainer hiker class, hiker trainer class, right? Like, that would also be my pokésona, is like just a fucking hiker, because they seem so happy. Like, especially like the fat ones from like Gen 1 to 4, 1 to 5. When was it they introduced other hiker variations? Something like that. So, like, yeah, and it wouldn't, like, if I had a pokésona, it would just straight up be a fucking Snorlax with a beard and glasses. Like, no anthro shit. I just want to be a creature, and I just want to lay in the sun and sleep and eat a lot of food. Have you ever read Nausicaa? No, I have not. I have watched the movie, but I have not read it. But thank you for the recommendation, I suppose. Unseelie Set. Question, have you ever tried to see analog horror on fiction and its variants? I have no idea what that is. Have you seen compilations of ARGs? No, I've never really engaged with ARGs. They've never really grabbed me. Like, I've never gotten anything out of them, really. I think, like, those are sort of things where I wait for other people to solve them, and then I just read up on what's in there, and then if any of it's relevant, then I go, oh, okay, cool. but I have no idea what any of that is. And I've never really engaged with ARGs very much. So that sounds cool, but it's not really my genre of thing. Have you ever seen the Girls Love Anime Bloom Into You? I saw 3 episodes of it. I think I watched 3 episodes, and I was like, oh, I should keep watching that, and then I didn't, because ADHD. That's how ADHD works. As someone who's currently questioning whether they could be someone the arrow spectrum true, this one hits so different for me in its approach to love and romantic versus platonic feelings and characters for whom that whole thing just doesn't seem to work quite the same as it does for others. The protagonist that was introduced as someone who loves romance stories and wants to feel like that, but so far has never been able to. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you haven't seen it or read the manga. If you haven't, perhaps you'd enjoy it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like, as you say, my to-watch list is already in the millions. Like I said, I saw 3 episodes of it. I don't know how the story really goes. But yeah, like, it's the aromantic thing, right? It's like, we read love stories, we see love presented in media, we understand the transcendental power of it, and, like, how complete it can make you feel and safe and happy, and we kind of go, that sounds really nice, that'd be nice to have that. And then we go, why don't I have that? And then that's an identity crisis for, like, 10 to 15 years. Because we don't know that there's an option to not be romantic, right? And, like, it's definitely not, like, in the aspect community, it's not uncommon at all that, like, people who are part of the aspect community for a while eventually find themselves, right? Like, whether that's a gender transition, whether that's, like, some realization about their sexuality, or just because, like, gender and sexuality and all that shit, that can be fluid over time. So they are in our community for a while, they stay with us for a bit, and then eventually they kind of go, oh, wait, shit, I found the person that I get horny for. And they move on and, like, identify as, like, demi or gray or, you know, and that's cool. Like, I think that's one of the best things about the aspect community is that we can be a way station for people who need a place to rest, right? Like, need a place of respite from all of the fucking sex and gender shit until they're ready to find the place where they really belong. And then for some of us, it's also just, this is just where we are, right? Like, this is just where we belong. So, like, it's very common, right? Like, it's compet is a big part of it, right? Like, for a lot of lesbians, because they experience this compulsory heterosexuality, they end up in a place where it's like, well, I'm supposed to be attracted to men, and I think women are beautiful goddesses, but of course that can't actually mean anything. Obviously, I'm straight, but I have no romantic attraction to men whatsoever. That must mean I'm aromantic. And then by the time they get to the point where they actually realize, oh wait, hang on, being a lesbian is actually an option, and this feeling I keep having towards women is actually attraction. Oh, and then, you know, they become sometimes hyper romantic lesbians. It's a thing that can happen. But the aspect community is a lovely place to stop, right? Like, because, like, it's a place you can just kind of stay and hang out until you're ready to find who you are. All communities should be like that. Not all queer communities are necessarily quite as accepting of the idea of fluidity as they should be. But anyway, that's completely besides the fucking point of what you were talking about in anime. I didn't know that there were ace aspects to Bloom Into You. I did read She Loves to Cook, She Loves to Eat recently, which is a Yuri manga technically, but specifically which has an asexual lesbian protagonist. And there's, like, very explicit discussion of, like, her identity as ace and lesbian, like, the way that she relates to that, which I thought was quite good. Do you have any OCs? Tell us about them, please. Yes, okay, I do. God, I have so many OCs. Most of them are too old, and I don't want you to know about them, though. They're embarrassing. So, most of them you're not going to get to know about. I do have, like, this is a fictional character, right? So there's that one. Then there's the persona that I commissioned recently. The ref sheet for that you can find on my Blue Sky, and in the Discord. Let me see if I can bring something up on screen, because I think I have some old... I might have some old files. I can actually... Well, hang on. I have some fucking TTRPG characters I can tell you about. Let's just... boom. There. That should bring the screen up. Yeah, that's R66Y, who is a Warforged character that I played in a very brief TTRPG campaign that, like, unfortunately fell apart, scheduling issues. But, like, amnesiac robot who used to guard, like, a wizard's magical artifact tomb place, and now, like, his memory's corrupted, it's mostly broken, and he still has the tracker inside of his body, so when he's woken up, like, 100 years after the wizard's passing, and finds that he's in a place he's not supposed to be, he has this urge to go and find the place that he's supposed to be guarding, but he doesn't quite know why. And so along the way, he displaces this urge to guard and protect things onto whoever he meets, and that's how he falls in with the adventuring party. Is like, you people are going somewhere dangerous. I need to protect you because of I don't know why. And he disguises himself as a knight in full armor. Like, this is him completely out of his armor, right? He disguises himself as a knight in full plate armor, and not really pretends to be human. He's bad at that, but he tries to sort of get away with seeming like a human being. Let's see, what else? I have, oh yeah, I played this guy for a little while. This was for a World of Darkness campaign. He's a painter who gets, like, fucked up psychic visions. It was sort of set in the 1870s. And the first arc of the campaign was on the Orient Express, like, sort of traveling through Europe, and various, like, supernatural things were happening on the train. And this guy, being a painter, kept getting these psychedelic visions that he got in his head, and that he would put them down on the canvas, and those would be clues for the investigations we had. But he's like a sort of aristocratic failed son who was supposed to become an architect, and just could not put his romantic, poetic soul to rest enough to do anything productive or useful with his time. And so his dad was like, here's some fucking money, because he's a noble, right? Here's some money, go do whatever the fuck, travel in Europe, you have a stipend, I don't want to see you ever again, kind of thing. Never got to explore him as much as I wanted to, because again, scheduling conflict and shit like that, so the campaign ended before I had a chance to, but, you know. Then we have this guy. I have another piece of art of him as well. Somewhere. Yeah, there. This is Torval. He's my, he's a D&D Aasimar cleric of light, of Lathander specifically, who I played in, like, a 2-year-long campaign. And, like, he starts out as, like, a sort of, insecure little small town nerd cleric who's sort of like come to Icewind Dale more or less because he's running away from his parents, right? Like, his parents want him to, like, inherit, like, this big legacy. He doesn't have any interest in it. He doesn't want to do anything. But he ends up in this small town. He has the opportunity to go on a small adventure, which he thinks is very exciting. Oh, I've never gone on that adventure. That's very fun. And then, of course, it turns out there's like an ancient white dragon that wants to freeze the whole north of the world shut with, like, this great magical spell. And, like, all of a sudden, oh, we're off on an adventure to save the world. Which he does, eventually, fighting alongside a warlock of the goddess of rot, among other characters. He ends up marrying a paladin. It's very romantic. Let's see, what else do I have for old art of things that I don't mind showing? Not that much. Oh, hey, look what look what I found. This is from, oh god, this is from, like, 2015. I did draw one. I completely forgot about that. Going through my old art folders here. When the hell did I not draw a picture of... Because that wasn't 3 years ago we started that. He must be here somewhere. Yeah, that was in 2021, right? Wasn't it? I think it must be. Oh yeah, speaking of... Hiker self. I also drew that. I think I drew that as a lineup of... Yeah, oh, yeah, there. Along with the team that I would have as a Pokemon trainer. Let's see. Oh yeah, I drew this ages and ages ago. Which is like a deer bard thing. That I think I just wanted to load a million billion details onto a design that theoretically would clash horribly and then see what happened. I think that's more or less what I was doing there. Let's see. Oh yeah, here's someone I'm currently playing. This is Jack. He's a circus gunslinger who was in Wild Buffalo Bill's like Wild West Circus. And he gets stuck in Paris in the 1890s and ends up becoming a vampire hunter. It's a World of Darkness campaign that I'm currently playing. I think those are all the OCs I'm sort of comfortable showing off. Oh yeah, there's Tom. There's Tom. I should find Tom. Where the hell do I put Tom? I have Tom's art here somewhere. Is it on Google Drive? I think it's on Google Drive. Actually, no, I can't show you that. I'm not allowed. There's a thing I would love to show you, but I can't. Let's see. Where's Obsidian folder? There, and then TTRPG, campaigns, anti-cosmic, power play, images. Where's Tom? There he is. There's Tom. There's my good boy, who I'm playing in power play over on the didnt Dorks YouTube channel right now. Little college student. Oh, wait. I forgot to put it on screen. There. Your screen. Now you can see him. There he is. There's Tom. I'm an idiot. Here's Tom. College student who gains superpowers to control shadows in a sort of freak accident that sort of creates superpowers for the first time ever in the universe that the DM's or superhero has created. And then he sort of stumbles his way through dealing with an evil television magnate. Well, yeah, I think at this point we have revealed that he's evil. Yeah, the episodes have progressed that far. And gets to kiss a boy along the way and get traumatized really badly and things like that. You know, typical TTRPG stuff. Boop. And moving on to the next question. Zeddy sounds like ready with a soft C sounds. Zeddy, have you ever seen friends get into something that you respect and want to enjoy, but for some reason or other you can't enjoy it? For me right now, that's Helldivers 2. Like, yeah. And yeah, you sort of talk through, like, the way that it engages with its Forever War satire. Yeah, I mean, it happens occasionally. I don't think I can sort of think of... I mean, nowadays, it's fucking Harry Potter, right? Like, I do have... I should say, some friends who were, like, just unwilling to let go of their engagement with that fucking thing. And I just, like, I know, you have the fucking Deathly Hallows tattoo. It was incredibly important to me as well. But that's not really the question. You asked for something that I can respect, but I can't enjoy. That's a different one. Like, that's a different one. I'll say it's happened to me. Yes, absolutely. Like, and that's normal. That's just part of the human condition. Not everyone enjoys everything, right? Not everything is for every person. And it's valid to have your criticisms of that. And it can feel very lonely to have criticisms of that kind of thing, right? Like, it can be a very lonely thing to be in your friend group where everyone's into this fucking thing. And it's just, you just have bad vibes or it just doesn't click with you. And you can't really be a part of it. That can be alienating and lonely. And very annoying, right? Like, because it feels like you're very alone in your feelings about this sort of thing that you can't really share with them. Because if you bring up criticisms, then, like, other people might feel like you're sort of criticizing them for, like, investing part of their identity in this thing. And that's, you know, that's normal. It happens. It sucks. It's happened to everyone. It's happened to me. First question, out of all the bosses you fought in the Soulsborne games, which one do you think was the least fun to fight? Lawrence. Bloodborne Lawrence. He sucks. I don't like fighting him. He's very, very, very fucking annoying. I don't like his fight. I don't like it. It sucks. It's really, it sucks. It's bad. It's just straight up bad because it's just lava on the ground. And it's just fucking lava on the ground. And you don't get to actually fight him. It's just about this fucking lava on the ground. You hit him one or two times, then you run away. And then you look for... It's so fucking tedious, and nothing happens in the fight, and he doesn't do anything interesting. It's just... It's a war of attrition, where there's no way to, like, sort of turn the attrition in your favor, except just to be painfully slow. And in a game like Bloodborne, especially, where the game is supposed to be fast, right? Like, so much of the game is built about being fast and, like, agile and shit like that. And Lawrence is just a fight that's like, no, you don't get to do that. Fuck you. Just, bruh. Tedious. Have I played Outer Wilds? Not yet. It's in my Steam library along with 100 million other games I have never touched. May I ask, what's the etymology of your name? I've made a video about that, actually. It's called 7 Essays About Characters That Matter. And it's the last essay in that video, and you can go watch that if you want to know. Do you think you'll ever return to making cast or comics? No. That area has passed. And part of the reason I'm sad to say is money. Like, I was a comic artist. I made a modest living doing that. I can't anymore. And certainly not by doing caster comics. So it's not, I just can't justify investing the time. I still want to make comics sometimes. I still draw things for myself. I draw little goofy strips and shit for the TTRPG campaigns that I'm in. But no, like, esports comics, not a growth market, let's put it like that, and not something that I'm interested in returning to ever. Zeddy, oh no, you're the protagonist of the latest Isekai light novel. I took a very pleasant nap, then woke up in Runeterra as a League of Legends champion of my choice. Which champion and why? Oh, Bard. Because he's immortal and can't be murdered horribly. And you just kind of get to go around and vibe and play music. So I prefer that. I'd rather do that than, you know, be a mage in Demacia, for example. Or just live anywhere in Noxus or Bilgewater where you just get stabbed all the time. Or even Ionia where they're kind of shitty and like conservative. No. It's full of ninjas that want to kill you. No, absolutely not. I wouldn't even want to be a Yordle because they also get into shit all the time. So Bard, be floating around the cosmos. Occasionally you come down and steal a magic artifact from someone who's being a dickhead with it. And you just chill. You just chill. You're just happy. Nightly Night, I couldn't decide on one question, so here's two I was curious to ask. If I remember correctly, you said in your reaction channel that you pause to observe, analyze details in animation, even when casually watching on your own. So what's your experience when watching animated movies in cinemas? I mean, is it irritating not to be able to pause? I mean, yeah, all the time in cinemas, I kind of go, no, I want to see that again. How did they do that? That looks so cool. I had that when I watched The Boy and the Heron. In cinemas, there were so many times I was like, no, I just go back. I didn't think I want to see. But it's also like, I'm in a cinema. I can't pause it, and like, that's part of why I really like going to the cinemas, because it kind of forces me to sit my ass still and just experience the movie rather than think the movie, which is kind of what happens when I watch media on my own. It's like, I don't really watch it so much as I think my way through it, which is not always the best way to engage with a piece of media, you know? Do you have an irrational favorite character who your brain tells you isn't that deep, interesting, unique, but purely on an emotional level you can't help but love them a lot? I mean, that could apply to any League of Legends champion. Unfortunately, that's every League champion. I mean, not really an irrational favorite, because like any of my favorites that I could sort of go, oh, you might think this character is really like shallow and not very deep. I can come up with an hour-long YouTube video about why they are actually deep and it's actually interesting and there's a whole bunch of cool stuff going on with them. Like even when they're really like nothing, and like, so I don't think I have that. I don't think I have an irrational favorite as you describe it. I really don't think I do, because I could talk forever about what makes all of them interesting and fun. So because of the way that I am as a person, you know. Torpy, hey, I recently remembered that I actually encountered your channel years and years ago before I then rediscovered you years later and dived into your content. Well, thank you. My first encounter was your narrative analysis of the first few episodes of Trigger's SSS Gritman, which is what made me appreciate that series so much, leading it to become one of my favorite anime. To indulge my nostalgia bit, did you wind up finishing the series? I did not. So I don't have any strong opinions on it, and I kept meaning to, and I kept meaning to watch Dynazenon as well, because they look fucking fantastic. I never got around to it, unfortunately. The anime reviews I used to do was another one of those ADHD. Yeah, sure, I can take that on. Like, no problem. I can tie that in with all the other work I'm doing things. And that sort of fell out of my head afterwards. Like, maybe I'll like, well, no. I was about to say, maybe I can do it here on the reaction channel. But no, I can't. I know that I can't. That was my ADHD going, I can put another chunk of work onto my workload. No problem. Why? Like, what could possibly go wrong? No, I can't. No, I won't. I have to let it go. Sorry. Zots, you know, if you're asking, or Amber specifically in this case, am I gay? You're probably gay like 9 times out of 10. Do you think it's the same way with being aromantic to some extent? Funny you should say that, because like it's not at all uncommon for aromantic people to be like, well, I don't feel any attraction towards the gender I'm supposed to be attracted to, so I must be gay. I must be homosexual, right? Especially, again, when you don't know that aromantic is an option, when you don't know what aromantic is, or that it's a thing that you can be, or what that experience even looks like. It's very common to be like, well, I must be gay then, because of that's the only, if I'm not attracted to straight, then gay is the other thing, right? It's the one or the other, and there's not an in-between of those things, or a neither of those things. So, like, when you're asking yourself, am I gay a lot? 9 times out of 10, you're gay. I don't think that's true. I think like 9 times out of 10, if you have the conversation with yourself many times, like, am I queer? Am I queer? Am I queer? I gay, right? Like, you're probably queer of some stripe, but not necessarily homosexual, right? Like, not necessarily gay. There's a lot of other options, right? Like, because like you can genuinely like feel like, oh, maybe it's because I'm gay, and it's like, no, you're a gray ace who's demi-romantic, and you haven't found a person that you engage with on a deep enough emotional level to be attracted to them, right? It literally can just be that. So I don't think 9 out of 10 times that means you're gay. But I understand where you're coming from. And do you think it's the same with being aromantic to some extent? If you find yourself asking a lot whether or not you're aromantic, like, yeah, it can be that you're aromantic. But again, like I said, compet is a thing. It can also just be that you have a romantic attraction specifically to a very certain flavor of non-binary. That's also a thing that can happen, right? Like, it can be that you have a romantic attraction to people of a very specific kind of gender that isn't really found within the normal cishet binary, right? Like, that's a thing that can happen. But at the same time, if you have the experience of having no romantic attraction to anyone, and that makes you feel like, well, I identify with the aromantic experience, then you can just be aro. Like, you can just identify yourself as aromantic for however long you need. Like, and if that means you're aromantic forever, cool, great, love to have you. And if that means you're aromantic for like a couple of years until you figure yourself out a little bit more, you go to college, you have some experiences, you experiment a little bit, and then you find someone, that is also, you're still a valid aromantic person for that time. Like, for the time that you're there, you're still a valid aromantic person, right? Labels are fluid. They're supposed to be. It's good that they're fluid. Even for people who remain like straight their entire fucking lives, within the Kinsey Zero, you can still move around a little bit left and right in one way or another, right? Like, it's like the binary is false forever. All binaries are false. There's no, like, except maybe in computer code, but even that, I'm not so sure. Been going back through some of your older Tubi Skyrim playlists later to have something to watch, and I noticed you did Monster Hunter World with viewers. Any plans to play the upcoming game with viewer supporters or solo? On the Discord, I think yes. I think I will be doing, like, I don't know that I'll be doing a Let's Play of Monster Hunter Wilds. I think that's a game I'm going to keep for myself as my own sort of de-stressing tool. But I might, like go on the Discord in the event chat and, like, go, hey, I'm playing Monster Hunter, come join me for hunts if you want. And then people can do that if they want to. But not for content, I don't think. Thoughts on what we've seen so far of Wilds? I've been playing the beta, and it's real good. Like, it's small, there's no progression, which really does annoy me. It does annoy me that there's no progression. You can hunt, there's 4 monsters you can hunt. You can have access to all the weapons, and, like, you can sort of, I've been playing around with a lot. I've been becoming kind of lance-pilled. I really quite like the lance in Wilds in a way that I didn't in Rise or World. But, like, the scope and scale of that game, just the sheer size of the play space that you get to be in, that you get to play around in, that you get to move in. Ooh, that is the good shit. Because, like, I've mostly played Rise, right? Since it came out, I like Rise more than World on a gameplay level. Like, I really like switch skills. I really like the mobility of having the K9. I really like the mobility of like, and the speed that is in Rise compared to World. But Rise is also like a limited thing. It's limited graphically. It's limited in the size of the areas it's capable of rendering. It has a very specific sort of anime cartoon vibe in the way that you fight the monsters. That's like much more like you're fighting anime villains than you're fighting monsters, right? Like, it's more like fighting an anime monster than it's like hunting a monster that has like an ecology. Rise is Wilds has much more of this sense of like, no, this is an ecology. This is an ecosystem. You're going out into it, and you're fighting monsters that are much closer to animals in the way that they behave, in the way that they interact with you. I like that a lot more. Like, there's something to that Rise really didn't do for me. And like, I need this. I need this full version of this game. I need the full version of this game real badly. I really want it because it's the hunting I want. It's the hunting that I want. Evelyn, recently seen your bookshelf in one of your shorts, and I'm super glad to see you a fellow Pratchet fan. I know that you hate favorites, so I won't ask that, but is there any one novel of his that has resonated with you in particular? For me, it's Reaper Man. Reaper Man is good. Reaper Man is like, what can the harvest hope for except for the care of a Reaper Man? It's like, good job, Pratchet. I think the one that hit me personally harder was probably Feet of Clay. Words in the heart cannot be taken. That the point that book is getting at about consciousness, cognition, and like what it means to be free, what it means to have will, what it means to make choices, and like be a person. Like, good shit. Very good. Like that. Words in the heart cannot be taken. That's a quote that sticks with me. What's something that brightens up your day? My cats. I know, I don't have a fucking profound answer to this. My cats! My cats! Little dipshit moron idiots who live in my house and eat food and, like, steal shit out of the trash. And one of them pees in places he's not really supposed to sometimes if we leave stuff on the floor. And I love them to death. And they make the world good. They just make the world good. It's just the world is good now that they're in it. Are there any games you played in the Let's Play channel that you wish you didn't monetize for content instead played on your own time? Technically, all of them? Yeah, no. Like, there are games, like, that I wouldn't play them if I wasn't monetizing them. One of those games is Dark Souls. Like, I would never have played Dark Souls if I didn't start doing it for content. I would never have learned to love Dark Souls if I didn't do it for content. Playing a game for an audience, it has a different vibe. It feels a different way. It forces you to engage with a game in a different way, and often in a deeper way. Than you do when you're just kind of doing it on your casual lonesome. So not all games, but like there's definitely, I kind of regret a little bit doing a playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3 on the channel. I kind of wish I could just have that for myself without the analysis part. I've enjoyed doing the Baldur's Gate playthrough a lot. I've got a couple of episodes I still need to record. So I don't regret it necessarily so much as I kind of wish I just had that for myself alone, so I could just be with that on my own without having to have content creator brain about it. But yeah, like, yeah, there's a few games where it's like, oh, I kind of wish I had that for myself instead of content creator braining it. I kind of have that with Control, which I have never done videos about. I haven't done a Let's Play of it, but it's one of those games that I know I really want to do a Let's Play of. And so because of that, I've never played it casually because I want to do a Let's Play of it. But I'm also in the position of like, I'm probably never gonna. So maybe I should just play it. But then if the moment I start to play it, I'm gonna be like, no, I want to make videos about this. And then, you know, so it's a tough line to walk. There are definitely games that I am very careful to keep just for myself, so I don't have to have an opinion about them ever. You have to do that when you do this kind of shit for a living. If you're any kind of streamer or a Let's Player or whatever, keep some shit for yourself. Game Ahmed, what's a piece of media where the fact that it's predictable is a compliment rather than a detriment? I mean, a lot of them. Like, predictability is not a bad thing at all. Not at all. Like, that's sort of the thing, like, with like, Marvel movies are partly to blame for this, but, like, blockbuster cinema in general is sort of to blame for this fetishization of the twist, right? Fetishization of like, oh, the unexpected, like Luke Skywalker was Darth Vader's son the whole time. There's a certain fetishization of that where people are so like, well, like jerking off over the thing. Oh, it's so unpredictable. I didn't know what was going to happen. Oh, it makes me come. Right? Like it is this sort of almost like masturbatory thing about like, it's only good if I didn't know what was going to happen. And I know. Plenty of movies, it's like you can see the twist coming from a mile away. You can see all the narrative tropes playing out exactly the way that they play out in almost everything else. And it's still satisfying. Because it's not about whether you didn't know what was going to happen. It's about like feeling it. And feeling that it was well executed, that it engages your feelings, that it engages you intellectually, right? That's what it's about. It's not about whether it surprised you. Right? If you know that the butler did it, that doesn't mean the crime novel is a waste. It just means you get to enjoy watching the characters go through the process of figuring out, and the process of that can be very satisfying. So, like, most media, I think, is like, because every single movie you have ever seen in your life is predictable if you've watched it once. Right? Every piece of media you've ever consumed in your life is predictable if you have watched it even one time. And, like, does it cease to be a good movie then? Like, the moment you watch it, oh, all the surprise is gone. Now this movie sucks. Now it's bad forever. No. It's still good, even though you know exactly what's going to happen, how, and why. So predictability is, I don't think, ever really a detriment. Predictability is only a detriment if the process of going through the thing that you've predicted will happen is tedious and uninspired and doesn't engage you. Amber, would you consider Lord of the Rings films a rent-fair cheese? Why? No. Specifically because Lord of the Rings is a very different kind of sincere. Like, you would have to ask Aronok. Aronok has a fantastic video essay about rent-fair cheese where like, they lay out, she lays out a great definition of rent-fair cheese, but I would not consider Lord of the Rings films a rent-fair cheese because it's not really affecting that kind of fairy tale aesthetic. It's not really affecting that kind of cheesy fantasy aesthetic. It's very much like Lord of the Rings is very much grounded in I wouldn't say not any kind of historical realism. Of course, it's high fantasy, but it's not cheese fantasy. I can't really define it, give you a hard definition on it. It's just vibes. Let's see. Oka Goblin. Hello, Skyen. I hope you and cats are doing well. Hope life is treating you well. Have you ever had any interest in the World of Darkness setting on TTRPGs? Yes, I play the World of Darkness TTRPG right now. So, yes. Hunter the Parenting, people have told me about that before. It's on the list with Digital Circus. Like, maybe if I have the time someday, I will check it out. But nothing beyond that. Unsilly Sets. Sorry for another question. Sorry for a long one. This may be controversial. There's a game I'm loving because of the themes and art style. Everything was literally hand-drawn. It's kind of a visual novel roguelike adventure game with psychological existential themes, moments of visual violence and brutality. You can complete the full game in 10 to 12 hours. You're trying to recommend it to me here, I see. Would you be able to play a stream and give it thoughts and slay the princess? I have it in my, like, much like the other games that often mentioned. I have it in my Steam library. I haven't played it yet. I have the updated definitive edition now. And it's something I want to play at some point, probably for content, but I have too many other things on my plate. I can't commit, and I will not commit to anything. Question as someone who's never used Tumblr in my life, what's the pattern between all the Tumblr Sexy Men that showed up to the site? Interesting question. Because one thing about Tumblr Sexy Men, the major defining trait of a Tumblr Sexy Man is that he's not a sexy man. Right? That's the main thing about a Tumblr Sexy Man, is that he is not. And he's not even necessarily a man, but it's not a sexy guy. It's not a character who was meant to be hot to anyone ever, right? Sans Undertale, the Onceler, like even fucking Severus Snape, right? These are characters that weren't designed, as it were, to be like, oh, this is the one you're supposed to be attracted to, right? Especially the Onceler is a good example of that. That's why it's a Tumblr Sexy Man. It's a sexy man who's only a sexy man within the cultural milieu of Tumblr, right? And the commonality between them is just that, right? Like, that's the only the only part of the definition is that they are all characters that, like, were never designed at any point to be thirst traps for anyone, but for whom there's a substantial fandom of people who just want to see them, just want to see them like and up and down, and like, that's what it is. That's what a Tumblr Sexy Man is, specifically. Which is why I sort of disagree with, like, for example, like, people calling Alastor from Hazbin Hotel a Tumblr Sexy Man. It's like, no, that one was clearly made to be thirsted over. Like, he has some aspects of it, but, like, yeah, come the fuck on. Like, you can't look at Hazbin Hotel character design and be like, oh, that wasn't supposed to be horny. Yes, it was. Same thing with Hell of a Boss. Like, fuck off. Like, that's not the same thing as the fucking Onceler. Tumblr Sexy Industry Plant. Yeah, I mean, basically, Anton, basically. June, hello, Sky. You've expressed in your podcast that you have some criticisms about Jujutsu Kaisen. What do you think of the series and how it presents its story and characters? I have a lot of conflicting feelings about the manga. Flawed execution, poorly managed character development, bizarre narrative choice. Yeah, I mean, yeah, basically. I will say, I stopped reading Jujutsu Kaisen when the, after Gojo gets trapped in the prison thing, during the, what is it, the Shinjuku incident, whatever it's called, where it, for me, the story devolved into shonen power battle bullshit, right? Where its only method of narrative advancement was, they fight a guy who's stronger than the last guy they fought. And then they fight another guy who's stronger than the last guy they fought. And then they fight a guy who's stronger than the last guy they fought. And then, oh, here's another guy. And guess what? He's stronger than the last guy. Or he's a threat in a different way. But it's fighting a guy as the only means of character advancement. And that's fine for some shonen. Like, plenty of shonen is, like, built to... Like, Dragon Ball is kind of built to function within that format. It's what killed Naruto for me, or Naruto near the end of it. And it killed Jujutsu Kaisen for me very early because I saw that shit coming from a mile away, where it's like, okay, from now on, the only way the story can advance in any meaningful way is if the characters meet a guy who's stronger than the last guy they met, and then they beat him up, right? Or get beaten up by him, but then they get stronger and go on a train. Like, at that point, I knew what the fuck the pattern was going to be, and I wasn't interested. Specifically because Jujutsu Kaisen presented itself as a game about death, as a game about reconciling with the inevitability of death, and, like, the concept of, like, dignity in death and dignity in mortality, and, like, the way that you... Like, that's what cursed energy is, right? Like, it's about dealing with, like, grudges and grief and, like, the pain that exists in the world and how overwhelming it can be. And it kind of just fucking abandoned that when it became a shonen power battle, because at that, it's the same thing Bleach kind of did. It's like, once it becomes exclusively a shonen power battle thing where the only narrative advancement that can happen is because the guy beats up other guy who's powerful with power, there's a lot of themes that go out of the window that you just can't engage with anymore. And especially themes around, like, vulnerability and death and, like, things that are deeply soul-bound like that. I just don't think the shonen power battle format is built for that or good for that at all. And Jujutsu Kaisen became that, and sort of like, oh, Black Flash, and, like, here's the, like, superpower, the cursed technique thing. Here's, I'm gonna explain my domain expansion for 38 pages, and, like, it's very complicated, and just, again, it's not that it's wrong, it's not that nobody should enjoy it, or that you're stupid if you engage with it, it's just not for me. Zeddy. Something I was wondering after a while, that after that reaction to League adding a bullet heaven mode, are there any lesser-known bullet heaven games you'd recommend to your fellow addicts, particularly any that put a significant twist on the game mechanics? Oh, you activated my trap card a little bit here. Let me look up find my Steam library here for a second, because I've got a bunch of them. Let's see. I can't show you my Steam library because there's some things in there that you probably shouldn't put on YouTube. Let me see. Let me just hide some of all that away. Where are the bullet heavens? Where did I put them? There. Let's see. I can probably put it on screen now. 20 Minutes Till Dawn, I quite liked. It's more of, it appropriates a lot of the twin stick shooter in its way. Like, it's very much about, like, you have weapons that shoot projectiles and, like, you modify them. That one's very good. I've enjoyed that a lot. Bone Razor Minions is fucking fantastic. It's one where you summon minions that do the fighting for you, and your main job is just to survive while your minions do the fighting. Like, it sort of takes the passive aspect of it, and, like, turns that into, like, a much more explicit part of the game mechanic. Death Must Die, I've sunk a little bit of time into recently, and it's quite a good, like, it's just a really pretty one. It's one that has, like, some nice character design, some nice graphics. It sort of takes a Hades-like approach to, like, you fight, you gain boons from various gods. Each god has a personality, you can have some dialogue with them, kind of thing. Deep Rock Galactic Survivor is fun, because it has this mining thing built into it, where you have these objectives around the map that you have to complete in order to progress to the next level. And it's getting updated a lot because it's Deep Rock, right? So that one's very active. Halls of Torment is like, if you play Diablo 1 and you have some nostalgia for the style of, like, old PC games like that, then Halls of Torment is like that. It is exactly that. Let's see, can I find some fucking screenshots from this game? Somewhere. Not really. Okay, but it's that. Like, it's a Survivor's Up that, like, has not really any mechanical twists, but it's just has that aesthetic and really scratches an itch for me as someone who sunk a lot of hours into the original Diablo. Holocure Save the Fans is just a Survivor's Up. I don't know any of these fucking VTubers. I recognize the Shark Girl, I think. But it's just a good one. Like, it's just one that has, like, a satisfying sort of, has that dopamine hit thing that it goes for. Keeper's Toll is in 1.0. I haven't really played it since it was in early access. It was okay. I wasn't super taken in by it, but it's effective. Like, and it has, like, a decent aesthetic. Pathfinder, I can't recommend. Again, I played it back in early access. Maybe it's gotten a lot better. I did not find this one very compelling or interesting to look at. Renfield, Bring Your Own Blood is a bit interesting because it's a movie tie-in for a Nicolas Cage movie, of all things. And has like a cool pixel art aesthetic thing. I don't know that it's ever going to be finished necessarily, but, you know, because they haven't done anything on it since December 2023. But it's like worth looking into if you just want a survivors game. You're sort of going through it. But yeah. Oka Goblin again. What are your thoughts on brutalism as an architectural idea movement, and are there any instances of it that you think have been actually examples of good architecture, not just cartoonish examples of authoritarianism? I strongly disagree with the idea that brutalism and authoritarianism go hand in hand. They don't. That's not what brutalism is or what it's for. It's... like so many things, and I should be careful, I'm not an architecture expert, but like so many things, brutalism had some idealistic ideas going into it about construction, about like a certain approach to simplicity, a certain approach to accessibility that was supposed to be a net good for the world. Like, it came out of some genuine idealism. It wasn't supposed to be this, like, people think of brutalism as like, oh, this is a concrete slab that represents glory of Soviet nation, dominating world forever. Like, and that's not what it is. Like, it was an attempt to try and build and create a style of architecture that was more economical, that was more accessible, that could, like, uplift large numbers of people to better living conditions. And, like, it's sort of part of the reason why it gained the reputation that it did is because it became associated with Eastern Europe. It became associated with communism. It became associated with, like, it became the other side of the Cold War, right? And it became this thing of like, oh, brutalism, all of it's just concrete boxes, and they're all ugly and lifeless and have no soul because of communism has no soul. And like, how's the insulation in it? If I remember correctly, there's an issue with brutalist building. It depends how you build it. Like, insulation is not really a matter of just of the architecture. It's a matter of, like, do you fucking put insulation in the walls and like, do you insulate the roof properly? So, like, I live in a building that it's not brutalist. It's one of the sort of architectural styles that emerged in the aftermath of brutalism. It's from the 60s. And sort of tried to mess around with brutalism. And this thing holds heat really fucking well, and cold also. Like, it's fairly cool in the summer. It's quite warm in the winter. Like, we need better window isolation, but that's insulation, but that's the other thing. Like, so, like, brutalism is not authoritarian in nature. It really isn't. It's an association that exists culturally, but that's not what the architecture style came from. So, like, I mean, the trouble is I can't name buildings with good brutalist architecture because I can't remember their fucking names. But I have images in my head of, like, various brutalist buildings that are, like, really interesting. I know there's an abandoned building in Britain, actually, which I think was the property of a monastery, of all things, or a church, maybe? That was, like, this big brutalist art piece building that is still, like, even now that it's abandoned and, like, decaying and falling apart, it's being kept as a heritage site. It can't be torn down, but nobody's maintaining it, so it's slowly falling apart. It's still gorgeous. Like, the play that there is there with shapes, with, like, geometry of trying to create an interesting geometry even within the confines of, like, having gray concrete everywhere. Very interesting, right? And brutalism, like, oh, it's just a gray concrete slab with nothing on it. It's like, yeah, but you can paint it, though. You can paint it. You can put plants there. It's... part of the point is you build a building that's very, very simple, and then the people who live there can put life into it and, like, decorate it and like change it and animate it in various ways by, like, adding plants, by adding, like, laundry, like, by, like, having kids playing around in it. Part of it, like, that's one of the things that annoys me about seeing brutalism as this authoritarian thing is, like, brutalism is also about making space for people. Right? Brutalism is also about, like, here is a big undifferentiated concrete box. We're not imposing an aesthetic on it. We're not imposing a particular visual style of life on it. Here, this is for the people. Do what you want with it, right? That's part of the idealism that's sort of in there. Again, in some, like, there's different philosophies of brutalism. It's a complicated thing. But, like, if you take a brutalist building and you just put some fucking plants on it, all of a sudden it's a lot prettier. All of a sudden it's a lot more alive. It's a lot less gray and dead feeling. Because, like, you have to put life into it, the building, to make it real, right? So, yeah. Where did the idea of dragoons being associated with dragons come from? Was it only exclusive to Final Fantasy, or did it originate from somewhere else? I think it was Final Fantasy. Really. Like, I don't know 100%, but I think it was Final Fantasy, and I think it really might just have been because they're spelled pretty similar. A lot of stuff in Final Fantasy was like that. Like, a lot of things are often like that. It's just, oh, these things are spelled similar. Let's just associate them with one another. But dragoons weren't associated with dragons even, like, completely from the start, right? Like, that's also something that's a little bit tiny bit coincidental in some ways. So it's something that just kind of evolved. I think Final Fantasy originated it, but don't quote me on that. I don't actually know. Let's see. Cyberus the Third, you did an analysis of Jaden animations recently. I was wondering if you consider doing other YouTubers' animation analysis. I had the Chalk Eaters in mind. Maybe. It's a bit of an ethical thing of, like, I can't just re-upload someone else's video and then, like, get money and subscribers out of it. Like, it's technically, what I do falls within fair use, clearly. Like, I make sure that it falls within fair use. That's how I feel okay, like, doing it to Hell of a Boss, right? And that's, like, Jaden Animation's like, okay, I can't make a dent. Like, if I upload her video and, like, do a bunch of commentary on it, that can't affect the views on a channel like hers, right? So, like, very large YouTubers, maybe. Small animation YouTubers that don't have a lot of success, I feel complicated about that. I don't necessarily know that I would wanna, because I don't like the idea of, like, even if I demonetize it myself and I don't make ad revenue from it, I struggle a little bit with it, because this is the thing that I kind of hate about a lot of reaction channels, is this thing of sometimes they are just kind of an excuse to upload other people's videos and make money off of them. And I'm like, I should, if I want to hold that opinion, I should be pretty conscientious that my channel never falls into that category, right? So, maybe, but I feel conflicted about it. Atlas, does it ever bother you when commenters on your Pokemon shorts seemingly don't engage with the design discourse at all? Feel like I see a lot of comments on those shorts talk about gameplay or personal favorites rather than actually respond to the points in your video. I mean, welcome to the internet. Welcome to, like, that's not just the Pokemon. That's everything I ever make ever, anywhere. A lot of people will insist violently upon not engaging with the point I actually make in the thing. And sometimes they just make up things they think they would have liked me to have said so they can yell at me about them. Or sometimes they just, like, they don't hear anything that's said. They just see, oh, here's the thing I recognize. That prompts a thought in me. I'm going to put that in a comment. I don't care if it's relevant, right? Like, that's not a crime. You can comment whatever the fuck you want on the internet. It's a little tedious sometimes for content creators when we feel like 4,000 people come to our videos and leave comments that never engage with any of what we actually fucking say in the video. That can be a little bit tiresome. It makes me but it's not wrong. I'm not like, oh, you're not supposed to do that, that's bad or evil. It's just that's the reality of making media, is like a lot of people who comment on it don't actually engage with it. That's just the way it goes. Let's see, you've commented on Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity story, and it is by far my favorite modern Zelda story. What would you say in that hypothetical video on that? I'd love to hear about the Cliff Notes overall opinion on it. Yeah, so the thing I've said is that Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is not the greatest Zelda game ever made, but it's the greatest story ever told about Zelda. About Zelda as a character, it's the best story ever. It's the best story that ever focused on her and was about her. And basically, so in Breath of the Wild, right? Zelda, she's the main character of the story. Link isn't really a character. He doesn't really have a character. He's a silent protagonist who's like a stand-in for the player. So Zelda, through the flashbacks, through like her diary, through like, she gets to have the character arc, she gets to have the conflicts, she gets to like develop as a character and go through a process of like changing and becoming like a more realized person by the end of it, right? But the way that happens is that she starts out in the story as this like nerdy architecture and like archaeology enthusiast who's really fascinated by the past and by ancient Sheikah technology and stuff like that, and who really doesn't like the idea of having to take up her role as the destined princess of Hyrule and like become the destined thing of like awakening the power of the light to stop the Ganon thing, because it's fucking terrifying to be told that. She doesn't want that to be the whole of her fucking identity, understandably. And then there's the King of Hyrule, right? Who's like, no, my princess daughter, you need to stop doing stupid, silly archaeology bullshit because that's stupid, and you need to accept your destiny and do your fate thing to save the world. And then the story kind of sides with the king because Zelda resists and resists and resists and doesn't ever fully commit to saving the world. She doesn't want to. And it's not until Link is like basically being murdered right in front of her that she kind of goes, okay, I'll surrender myself. Like, I will give up myself and become the priestess that the goddess Hylia needs to save the world, right? And that's when she awakens her light power, she puts Links into stasis, she duels Ganon for 100 years, and so on and so forth. Age of Calamity says, okay, but what if the story sided with Zelda instead? What if it was actually about how her wisdom is the thing that saves the world rather than Link's courage? What if it was about that instead? And so that story, Zelda has been toying with all of these like archaeological things, specifically this little white robot that she calls Terraco, and messing around with that. And then when the calamity happens, that robot, which was this stupid toy that her father didn't want her to mess with, and that she believed in, and that that has an emotional connection for her with her mother, awakens, goes back in time, and allows for the possibility of averting fate, of changing fate. Rather than Zelda being condemned to her fate, she is able to change it, to make the world a different way, and a better way, because she was wise. Because she engaged with the world with her mind, and found another way than simply adhering to prophecy and fate. Right? And in that version of the story, yeah, she still awakens to her light power, but the thing that saves the world, the thing that allows all the champions to live, the thing that defeats Calamity Ganon and forges a brighter future for Hyrule, is that Zelda was wise and thought her way through the problem. Rather than simply, oh, prophecy, I have to become a damsel in distress, Triforce of Courage beats power, and then save the world. So it's the best story ever told about Zelda. Specifically about her as an avatar of the Triforce of Wisdom. Best one ever. It's in a Warriors game, unfortunately, and Warriors games are, well, they're Warriors games. They are what they are. I wish it had been in any kind of a different game. I wish it had been in like a mainline Zelda game. Maybe we get that a little bit with Echoes of Wisdom. I'm not hopeful, but yeah. Age of Calamity, best story ever told about Zelda. Celestial, you've mentioned that some League skins have wuxia themes such as Lunar New Year, and I'm curious if you ever interact with any wuxia content such as books of the million different 1,000 chapter web novels that exist with that setting. Not a lot. Not a lot. Like, most of the sort of major wuxia works I've engaged with are the ones you would expect. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Hero, those things. Outside of that, I just haven't had that much occasion to engage with it. I used to watch Thunderbolt Fantasy, just because the puppeteering in that fucking show is so fucking cool. It's such a cool fucking way to puppet things. But like, I don't have a ton of engagement with wuxia, so I don't have a lot of thoughts on it as such. Let's see. How do you feel about these kinds of posts from Riot? I'm glad that Riot now sees queers as a demographic worth marketing to, as opposed doubly so when many organizations have been toning down pride content. But I also feel an uneasy pit in my stomach seeing stuff like this when writers still aren't able to say the words Chalia as transgender due to corporate shenanigans. Yeah. So the tweet that's linked up here is specifically a tweet that's sort of about a pride tweet from the Riot Games account where it's sort of like, are you lesbian and want to be a girl, or do you want to be a boy, or do you want to be non-binary, void monster, ha ha ha, engagement bait for pride thing. And like, yeah, all of this, it's rainbow pride. It's corporate pride. It's rainbow washing, pink washing, it's corporate pride, right? Which is, the company is willing to take progressive pro-social stances like, for example, gay people should exist, only so long as it doesn't fuck with their bag, right? And a lot of companies have been pulling back a lot on pride because there's been a rise in the far right across the world, and especially in the United States. And that's what's called, like, that basically they're pre-obeying the orders that they imagine are eventually going to come, right? And that's a thing that happens in authoritarianism, is that companies, especially companies and corporations that like only really give a shit about money, will go, okay, probably there's gonna be a bunch of sanctions imposed against this kind of content, being queer content. Let's just not invest into building any of that, because it's gonna get, like, someday soon, probably, that shit is gonna become outlawed in some way or become a PR problem, so it's not worth it, right? And that's the best you'll ever get from rainbow capitalism. That's it. Like, that's all you'll ever get from rainbow capitalism from any front, is that, right? You can exist, you can be valid, you can be a part of the world that we build, a part of the fictions that we build, so long as we can make money off it. So long as we can make money off it and it doesn't cost us anything, fine, right? That's rainbow capitalism. That's corporate pride, and that's all you're ever gonna get. So, like, your feelings about it that you describe here, yeah, pretty much, yeah, uneasy pit in your stomach, that's correct, because, like, it's worth pushing for. I'm not saying it's worthless, right? Like, I'm not saying there's no value in it. I'm not saying that there's no benefit to having, like rainbow capitalism as such, because one of the big things that makes queer life easier is visibility and normalization, right? Like, the fact that queer people are visible in media, the fact that queer people are visible as something that's celebrated by very ordinary normative things like institutions and corporations, that has value. Because that's what gets a lot of the normies to, if not be like allies, at least just be, oh yeah, there's a gay person, who cares? Like, that's what gets them to let go of a lot of the reflexive fear and a lot of that. Like it does matter that you had like Laverne Cox, like as a like transgender tipping point character, right? It does matter. It does help. It's a good thing. It's much better to have corporate pride than no pride. It's just, it's not radical, and it can't be. That's not the thing that's going to change the world. The thing that's going to change the world is people putting their fucking careers on the line in order to get even the smallest hint of representation. Like, I still bring up every time that Rebecca Sugar had to threaten to quit to put a gay marriage in Steven Universe, and it cost her the longevity of the series because she made such a fight for it, because she made such a stink about it, because she really went to bat to have an on-screen lesbian wedding in Steven Universe, a show that was already phenomenally fucking gay. That shouldn't have been an issue. But because of that, they took away like a bunch of the later seasons. They curtailed a lot of the plans that were in place for like continuing the Steven Universe universe, right? And continuing the story. She had to truncate so much of her story because she stood up for this one thing. It cost her nearly everything. She nearly lost her job. She nearly lost her show for portraying like a bride in a white dress, groom in a black tux, traditionalist, basically fucking Christian marriage scene between two female-identified characters, right? It cost her that, just to get that in a show that was already one of the gayest shows that have ever existed, right? That's what actually pushes things forward. It's people who are willing to fucking go to bat for that, which is why I'm also I tend to be quite gentle on the people who work on corporate pride things, because, like, it's usually someone who's queer, it's usually someone who is fighting for their fucking life, trying to get any kind of representation out there against an avalanche of notes and concerns and stakeholders and people saying, I mean, well, could you tone it down a little bit? Or maybe it doesn't need to be so explicit, or maybe we're willing to do it, but only if one of them doesn't say that she's a girl. Like over and over again, this exhausting battle to get the least hint of anything to happen. The people who do that, the people who push for those kinds of representation are like heroes in my book in many ways. And corporate pride is not radical. Corporate pride will not set anyone free. It won't secure anyone their rights. That happens in the political arena. That's political engagement. That's organizing. But it's not worthless, right? So, pit in your stomach, that's the correct feeling to have about it. Pit in your stomach is the correct feeling. You shouldn't invest yourself into it. You shouldn't stand for it. You shouldn't say, oh my god, Disney, most woke company ever, because if they had a gay person in the... Like, never simp for that shit. Just be like, good. It's good that these things are here. I enjoy that these things are here. I'm not going to credit the company. I'm going to credit the people who worked on it, right? Matrox. Two small questions. First of all, you eventually react to the Amazing Digital Circus? Probably. And I remember you posted some YouTube videos some time ago recommending some great video essays, and I wanted to know if you had any recent new recommendations. I can find some. I haven't really cataloged any. But let me see. Let me just pull up my fucking YouTube subscriptions, actually. I'll be able to find some channels in there. Because, like, I'll always recommend transparency, right? They recently put out a video about Aquanaut's Holiday, which is a game I'd never heard about, which I like, find fucking fascinating. Let's see. Let me just fucking put that on screen, actually. Let's see. 8-Bit Music Theory. I don't know music theory very well, but 8-Bit Music Theory makes music theory video essays that break down the songs in various video games in a way that's, like, really accessible. That I really quite like. Let's see. Ahoy. Whenever they post anything, it's good. Let's see. Aeronok. Always watch Aeronok. Forever. Always. Oh, yeah. I should keep meaning to do a video about this. Aton Shea Films has some pretty darn good ones. There's a fascinating one he made here. Like, did Native Americans really live in balance with nature? Where he sort of challenges, and he talks to a bunch of, like, Native American, like, cultural leaders and advocates about this stereotype of, like, the natural Indian who lives in balance with nature as opposed to, like, the rapacious white man, and the ways in which that can be kind of a negative stereotype, in a way that can be a very demeaning stereotype, and one that obscures a lot of the reality of Indian history, and, like, Native American history. So that one's good. I would recommend that channel. Let's see, what else? God, I fucking subscribed to way too fucking many YouTube fucking channels. Fuck, man. CJ the X. Watch CJ the X. I don't think they need my boost, but, you know. How about some smaller channels that are worth looking at? Aaron Signal. You need to subscribe to Aaron Signal. You fucking need to do it. You have to. It's mandatory. Eurothug, if you like old horror games, like and like explorations of horror games, absolutely fucking do that. Every Frame of Painting recently came back somehow out of fucking nowhere. Exploring History with William C. Fox is good. Like, he has some, like, good, interesting videos about a bunch of stuff. Oh yeah, Fashionable Crow is someone I found recently. They are like a book talker, but they have some, like, longer form videos that are quite good. Let's see. Graham Stark occasionally has a good video essay on his personal channel. That's also worth checking out. He did some video essays about, like, all of the Olympic logos that have ever been, and that's like just a really nice, pleasant watch. Haley Whipjack is fun. I don't know that I would necessarily classify what she does as video essays as such, but, like, she has, like, breakdowns of TV shows and like movies and stuff where she, like, goes over the plot and, like, has some great commentary on it. I quite like. Heavy Eyed is good. I think I've recommended one of his video essays before. He doesn't upload too frequently, but he has some good fucking videos on his channel. Let's see. I Am Error. Evelyn is good. You can see that she sometimes rivals me in terms of video length. She also has a video essay recommendation video, fantastically, which is very useful. She has a bunch of video game essays. She has a bunch of like, she does these elaborate review videos where she talks through, like, really complex personal feelings about various games that she plays, which I really quite like and enjoy. Illusory Wall, if you want to just nerd out about all kinds of small mechanical like details in, like, the Souls games, and even also Lethal Company occasionally. That's quite nice. And there's also, like, there's lore to be mined here from like a bunch of the stuff that he unearths in the mechanics of the game. Ink, Fox, and Paper Tiger is good. They review webcomics, but it's a podcast, not really video essays. God, there's channels here I've never seen before, I think. Like, I don't know when I subscribed to them. Jeffiat recently had, like, a massive viral hit with No One Created Skull Trumpet, but he's got a bunch of other good, interesting videos that are worth watching also. Captain Christian very rarely uploads, but he makes fantastic video essays. So that might be something you've never seen before. Let's see. Laura Crone. You need to watch Laura Crone. Laura Crone makes... I think I also recommended one of her essays before. Let's see. I wish Lowest Percent would come back. They made good videos back when they were active. Marcel Voss is fun. He basically only does content about Roller Coaster Tycoon, but he's these little essays about like Roller Coaster Tycoon stuff, and then just random shit like this. Using Roller Coaster Tycoon visual imagery to discuss when you should greet someone you're walking to. Like, it's very funny. Lola Sebastian is good. Let's see. Moments in Media. I've actually been, like, if they were part of a video essay collaboration I did once upon a time. They've done some pretty damn good videos here and there. They don't get nearly enough views. I recommend everyone go subscribe to them. Because I really quite like the videos that they make. Huh. I don't know who the fuck that is. Why the fuck am I subscribed to that? What is that? What a stupid YouTube channel. Why would I subscribe to something like that? Sorry, Nikki. Let's see. Pim's Crypt! You need to subscribe to Pim's Crypt. I have not watched their Silent Hill 2 video yet, but they fucking great horror media analysis. Just so much good horror media analysis. Absolutely subscribe to that. Princess Weeks is good. She has like fantastic videos, like often about like race and gender in various forms of media. She has some very good videos on like Tall, Dark, and Racially Ambiguous is a great fucking video about like interpreting like the ways that language is used to describe people in classic literature, especially. I could probably go through this for fucking ever. But yeah, those are some recommendations. Let's see. Local, do you do art yourself? If so, is it publicly available to view? It's not really publicly available, no. I don't draw that much as I used to. Most of my old work, I don't really feel like, I feel complicated about it. I don't want to share it that much. I'm not really, I don't think it's very good. It feels embarrassing. So like most of it is not publicly available to view, no. Occasionally I'll put something on Blue Sky. Very occasionally, but most of the art I do nowadays is really just for myself. Occasionally, I also do some retouching on thumbnails and stuff in YouTube videos, but, you know, that's not really anything that's interesting for people to look at. Now that I've watched Fellowship of the Ring, I have a question. What were the inspirations behind the languages for Middle-earth? Oh my god, I mean, that's... Languages were the inspiration for Middle-earth. Like, it's the other way around. Tolkien was a fucking linguist with a big L. In brackets positive. He was a linguist's linguist, and Middle-earth came out of his obsession with languages. A lot of it is based on various forms of like old Finnish, Urgo-Finnish, like various forms of script, various forms of like linguistic construction. He based a bunch of stuff on like various Germanic languages. He fucked around a lot with that. I'm not an expert on it, but like languages are like the inspiration for Lord of the Rings, basically. And it's like this PhDs have been written about this subject. Like you can find extremely long video essays on YouTube going over this subject because it's what Lord of the Rings in many ways is about. Besides everything else, it's just Tolkien nerding the fuck out about his own language that he constructed. Let's see, watching the Fairy Court Tyrannosaur, noticing the music, I want to ask you a question about the Genshin OST. Right, this one, this question I picked. It's not me picking the music for the shorts. I have an editor who's called Minimo, and they're the ones who pick all of the music for the shorts. Like, I give suggestions. Occasionally, I'll ask for a specific song. I think I'm the one who asked for the Godfather soundtrack on the Giovanni short, for example. But it's Minimo who does all of the soundtrack choices, and they use a bunch of Genshin Impact and like MiHoYoverse music for it. I don't have any familiarity with it, particularly myself. I don't play those games, so you'd have to ask Minimo. Local, what are your favorite provocative or controversial art? Oh, easy, that one. Like, I'll find that fucking right now. Oh, hit my hotkey there. Oh, give me a fucking decent resolution, you piece of shit, Google. No! Oh, fuck off. How the fuck can I not find a decent resolution direct link to... There we go. Shouldn't be that fucking hard. This one. Marcel Duchamp's Fountain. Because this fucking thing is the universal fascist detector. This thing makes fascists still so fucking mad. People with these fucking shit-ass, like, Greek statue avatars on Twitter, they get so mad at Fountain. And so what fountain is, it's a urinal. Anyway, next question. Like, that's it. It's a urinal. It is Marcel Duchamp went to a ceramics factory. He bought a urinal. He scribbled on it a little bit, R. Mutt 1917 over there, and then he submitted it to an exhibition of art at a museum. He did that, and like fucking fascists get so mad about this because like, oh, it's the death of truth, it's the death of reality, like, oh my god, sculpture is the death of meaning, and it's like a woke ideology, blah 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 blah. Right? They get so fucking mad at this because it's a piece of like sort of surrealist, nonsensical, postmodern art to them. Except what Duchamp was doing when he created Fountain, or he didn't create Fountain, he just bought Fountain. What he was doing was, there was an exhibition at a museum that was like, we want to expand the definition and the meaning of art, and we'll accept any and all art pieces that anyone wants to submit, and we don't want to be exclusionary or like elitist about it. And then Duchamp said, okay, bet. He bought a fucking urinal, he signed it, and he submitted it to the competition, and they rejected it. He was trolling them. He was trolling a pretentious museum that was putting out like this ideological like bullshit. He knew it was bullshit about how they're more accepting and they want to expand the definitions of art and they don't want to be exclusionary and we're not gatekeepers. And he was like, bullshit, you are gatekeepers. You do gatekeep all the fucking time and I can prove it. Here's a fucking urinal, motherfuckers. Deal with it. And they didn't accept it. And he proved his point that like these institutions of art, these prestigious institutions of art, like museums, like curators, like the rich, they don't have your best interest in mind that way. They are not inclusive. They will make decisions. They are gatekeepers. They are tastemakers, right? They do have influence over the world of art. It is not a meritocracy. It's curation, right? That was part of the point that Duchamp was trying to make, is that like these institutions are exclusionary and elitist. And, like, he was very much on a sort of populist. And I'll say, Duchamp is not, like, an ideological hero. Duchamp is not a hero. Like, there's some decent arguments to be made that he stole a whole bunch of his ideas from a female collaborator of his, which, like, you know, but, like, what he was a surrealist and a Dadaist and someone who was very concerned with exposing the hypocrisy of artistic institutions. He wanted to explore the meaning and the definition and like the extent of art. He wanted to democratize it. He wanted to make it more accessible to people. And this is a troll that fascists fall for still to this day. Over and over again, they get so mad. It's like, oh, it's just a urinal. Anyone could do that. I could do that. That's not art. That can't be art. And what those fascists are doing when they do that is that they are being the museums that Duchamp was taking the piss out of with this thing. They are being these fucking snobby, elitist, exclusionary assholes trying to limit the scope of what art can be and who can do art and like what meaning in art can even be. And trying to impose that on other people in an authoritarian way. And they fall for it every single fucking time. It's funny every time. Every time these motherfuckers fall for it, it's funny. I love it so much. They're such dipshits. It works every single fucking time. No one has to like Fountain, by the way. I wouldn't look at this as decoration. It's a urinal. Like, who cares? Like, I wouldn't put this in my house as the decoration. It's not, like, aesthetically pleasing to me. But intellectually, it's really fucking funny. I love it so much. Lady Havoc, what are your thoughts on Who's Afraid of Red, Yellow, and Blue by Barrett Newman? Oh! Like, well, we can continue the discussion of, I'm hitting my hotkeys again. There. So, Who's Afraid of Red, Yellow, and Blue is, it's a series of 4 paintings, and they are another one of those examples of the types of paintings that fascists get pissed at. Let's take this one as the primary example, right? Because it looks like this. It's one of those, right? It's one of those paintings that's like just some fucking color on a canvas. And then there's fuck all there, right? This one specifically, there's a tiny, itty bitty strip of yellow right over here. Then there's blue, then there's red. And all the paintings are some proportion of red, yellow, and blue in these shades, just sort of arranged in geometric slabs. And again, part of the point and purpose of these paintings is to challenge the definition of art. It's to challenge like the scope of art. But the other thing, one of these paintings was vandalized. Like, someone who was so pissed at it went and took a knife to the fucking canvas and, like, tore a great big gash through one of the canvases. And the thing is, once the painting was damaged, it could not be repaired. Do you know why it couldn't be repaired? Because no conservator was capable, even though it was just a cut, right? You should theoretically be able to just kind of patch that up and then paint a red color back over it so no one could see it. But there's no conservator on Earth who's good enough to create this specific shade of red that this painting is using, because it's not just, he didn't just take a paint roller and like go fucking up and down across the damn thing. There's textures, there's layers, there is a uniformity to this red, which is incredibly fucking hard to replicate. That's part of the point of the piece of art, is that even though this looks so incredibly simple, it's actually, technically speaking, incredibly hard to replicate. You can't do this. It's a painting that looks for all the world like any motherfucker with a paint roller and a big canvas could do that easily, but you can't. You can make something that looks like it, right? You can reproduce something that looks like it, but something that's quite like this? No. When you get into the details, when you get into the specifics, the technicalities, the ways in which this painting was made, no, you can't. It's actually incredibly fucking hard. And it's not something just anyone can do, right? Which I think is, like, that's one of the interesting things about this painting. And that's true of, like, that's, if you think of, let me fucking find a Mark Rothko for you. Right, Rothko, this shit. Everyone looks at these and goes, oh, that's so fucking easy. That's nothing, right? That's just, he just puts blobs of paint look shitty next to each other. This one looks fucking ugly, doesn't it? Looks garbage, look like ass. And in most of the pictures you'll see online, these paintings do indeed kind of look like ass. They kind of look like nothing, right? They're not interesting, particularly to look at. Go see a Rothko in person. And do, as Mark Rothko said, he wanted you... He wanted these paintings to be observed from about 13 inches away. Go really, really close to these pieces of art and stare into the colors and count the number of colors you actually see. Because it's not just two colors. In any of these, it's never just two colors. There are layers and layers in colors. There's blendings of colors. There's shit going on deep in these paintings where you can kind of see it here with this pink. There's a glow and a warmth and a feeling to being in front of these paintings physically that just feels different. There's something about the way that the light plays with them. There's something about the feeling of being in front of them where the colors are richer and deeper and more powerful and more strange in ways that just... It's not something you can intellectualize your way out of, really. It's an emotional experience, right? And that's not to say, I don't guarantee that if you go to see a Rothko in person, that you'll stand in front of it and you'll start weeping with aesthetic joy and just think, oh my god, it's the most beautiful thing. Absolutely not. Plenty of people bounce off these things hard because they do nothing for them. But there's more to them than meets the eye, right? Like, there is something in here, right? It's not just random colors smeared on a canvas with nothing behind them. There is craft, there is an intellectual consideration, there is a lot of thought that goes... You can kind of see it here, actually. You can see the way that the red and the blue and the gray and the various colors he's used here, the way that they bleed through each other. You can kind of even see it here in the painting, and the way that that kind of creates a glow. That's much more pronounced in person. And these are paintings that they just don't translate to pictures. They just don't translate to photos. They just don't. They just don't. These are experiential paintings. These are, you have to stand in front of them. You have to open yourself up emotionally. You have to be willing to be affected by them in order to feel them, in order to get anything out of them. And if you don't do that, then this is going to be boring as fuck. You're going to bounce off. You're going to get nothing out of it. And that's valid too. Like, that's not an invalid thing. That doesn't make you stupid or anti-intellectual or whatever. It just means it's not something that resonates with you. But the point is, there is more in there. It isn't just colors on a canvas. There's something else going on here. There's an intellectual and experiential and an emotional content to these paintings that just doesn't come across on a photograph, right? You can see the differentiation in colors here, right? It's different being in front of them. So yeah. What was the question? Oh, controversial, provocative art pieces. Yes, I guess we covered that pretty well. Have you seen Alan Becker's videos? And if so, what? Alan Becker is so fucking good. He and his team. God, motherfucker. I should do a fucking video about his fucking Stickman videos. I should, because those things are way more complicated than you think. Way more technically accomplished. Way more. Like, God in heaven, that man is advancing things in animation. Like, there's innovation happening there. In a way that the way that he fucking implemented fucking Minecraft into his thing. Of course, that makes it catnip to children, right? Like, fucking having animation versus Minecraft is like, what a genius idea. What an easy way. I say easy. Like, what a perfect way to make $1 billion from children just obsessively watching your shit. But, like, also, just when he goes off, when he and his team just decide, let's fucking go off on some shit. They go off on some fucking shit, man. Like, the math and physics videos, absolutely. The season finale thing where they're fighting the virus creature is like, Jesus fucking Christ, he turned it into Dragon Ball Z just for a couple of videos. The complexity in the stuff that they do is genuinely mind-blowing in so many ways. I couldn't even explain all of it if I tried. I should try someday, though, because I want more people to appreciate just the level of craft that's in these fucking things. What's your opinion on how Aurora's autism has been portrayed? Not for me to say. I'm neurodivergent, but it's ADHD, so, like, that's not really... I don't know. You'd have to ask an autistic person. Game Ahmad, do you think that Lord of the Rings, do you think that both the film and the book endings of the trilogy are valid in their own right? Do you prefer one over the other, considering that the former ties a nice bow while the latter is a message of how imperialism, expansionism, and overall greed affects you no matter how rural you live in the world? I don't know that I completely agree with that reading, but, like, the movie's ending is made for the movie. Like, you cannot adapt a text without changing it. That's not a thing that you can do. And I think insofar as what the movies did, like, yeah, you can't, in the movie, you can't have the heroes defeat Sauron and Aragorn is crowned king and, like, evil is defeated forever from Middle-earth, and, oh, by the way, let's just go back and have, like, an extended 2-hour, like, you'd have to have a 4th movie about the Scouring of the Shire in order to make that work, and you can't, like, that's not a thing you can do. It doesn't work in a movie format. So it's not like, I don't think there's one that's better or worse than the other. They're different because they have to be, because it's adaptation. And I don't really know that I agree with your characterization of the Scouring of the Shire. I think it's a valid reading. It's just, that's not really how I read the Scouring of the Shire. The way that I read the Scouring of the Shire is that, like, so much of the book is about Frodo desperate to go home, right? He wants to go home. He, like, so much of how he and Sam persevere through the adventure is thinking of home, thinking of the Shire, thinking of coming home and finding that peace again. And then they come home and they find that they can't find peace there. And that's something that the movie gestures at, right? Like, that the hobbits, having gone through this adventure, have changed and become alienated from their homes. Especially Frodo, right? That they aren't really able to go home, right? We saved the Shire, but not for me. That's also what the Scouring of the Shire is about to me when I read it. Is that, like, there isn't a wonderful home to go home to that's untouched by everything. Like, you can't come home from war just like that, right? When you come home from war, there's still gonna be a fight to make your home the home that you need to recover from the war, right? I see it more as a thing about war trauma, much more than imperialism, expansionism, and overall greed. Like, for me at least, I don't think it's so much that. I think it's more about the specter of war haunts the soldier when he goes home. But that's just me. Like, that, again, not an invalid reading, just one I don't agree with. I mean, now that you've done it, Polo Max Ottle, now that you've done it, I have to. Portrait of Ross in LA. So, this is a pile of candy that when this art exhibition comes on, right? It's just a pile of candy. A pile of wrapped candies. Doesn't have to be any specific kind of candy. A pile of wrapped candies that's put somewhere in the museum. Sometimes in a corner. Sometimes it's put... let me just bring it up on screen so it's bigger for the rest of you. Sometimes it's put in a corner. Sometimes it's put in... like, just out on the floor. And the audience is encouraged to take pieces of the candy and eat it. Just like, or take it home with them, do whatever the fuck they want, but take pieces of candy and eat it. And the pile shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks, and then eventually there's nothing left, right? And that's another one of those art pieces where you kind of go, what's this pretentious bullshit? How the fuck is this art, right? Like, what is this? Like, what is... it's candy on... You put candy on the floor, and now that's supposed to be art somehow, motherfucker. It's a portrait of Ross in LA. I can't remember the artist's name, but he's a gay artist. I think he might have passed on. And this... Felix Gonzalez, yes. And this is a picture... This is a portrait of his lover, who had AIDS. Right? And this was long before PrEP. This was long before AIDS was fully understood. This was back when a lot of people still thought it was a plague that specifically affected gay men. And there was a lot of silence about it. Like, the American government was actively obstructionist in even allowing people to get treatment for it, and very judgmental. And so the portrait here is, as every single person who passes through takes a piece of candy and brings it away with them, it shrivels and shrivels and shrivels and shrinks until it's almost gone. Until it's gone completely. At some point, the whole installation is going to be gone. And it reflects the way in which Gonzalez had to watch the love of his life slowly shrink and shrivel and be emaciated and hollowed out by this disease that was taking and taking and taking and taking away from him over and over and over and over again until there was nothing left. And it's about the complicity of the public in that shrinking. Every single person takes a little piece away by inaction, right? That's part of it. There's also another part of it, which I think is one of the more, at least, it's hard to find evidence about the intention of the artist with the piece. This is all interpretation, I should remind you. Also, when you take a piece of candy and when you eat it, you get a sense memory of Ross, of this man. Like, I don't know that we know his full name, but you get a sense memory of this man, taste memory of this man, right? He leaves an impression on your senses, a memory in your mind that's coded somewhere else than just information, right? Like, it's different from just hearing a person's name or seeing a picture. Having a sense memory, that's different. A smell, a scent, a taste, that's something that sticks in your mind in a different way. And every single piece of candy here is sweet and nice, and it makes you feel good inside. It makes you happy, just like Ross used to do for Gonzalez. And so by taking a piece of candy from the pile, you also get to participate in Gonzalez's memories of his lover, the memories of the sweetness, the memory of the joy and the nice feelings and the happiness that Ross brought to Gonzalez's life, right? So there's layers to this thing, right? It's about an experience. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of art. And again, one of the things I love about modern art is, like, the point is you don't need a degree to do this. You don't need to practice 35 years with oil paints to make great art. You can literally just make a pile of candy and create the right context. And you have created a beautiful piece of art that's affecting and has something to say and communicates meaning. That's the wonderful thing about modern art, is that it's not exclusionary. It's not elitist. It is not something that sneers at you and, like, holds up its nose and goes, oh, you don't understand it. That's because you're an idiot and you're a plebe. Like, people do that all the time. Art curators, museums do that all the time. Cultural institutions do that all the time. But the art, modern art itself as a concept, as an artistic movement, no, it wants you to be a part of it. It says, yes, a urinal can be art. Yes, a pile of candy can be art. Yes, some fucking flat color surfaces scribbled on a painting can be art. You can be an artist too. This belongs to you as well. This is you. You can do this. Yes, you can do this. Of course you can do this. This belongs to you, right? It's not for the institutions. It's not for the fancy people. It's not for the rich. It's not for the people with art degrees. It's for everyone. You can do this. You could do this too. That's the point. That's the beautiful thing. Which is one of the reasons why I get so, like, it's so annoying when fascists, and, like, not just fascists, like, plenty of people who are not fascist at all also have these very negative feelings about modern art because they've been told to believe that it's exclusionary and sniffing its own farts and stupid and pretentious and doesn't have anything to say that's relevant for anyone in the world. Right? But that's not what it is. That's a mischaracterization. It's a lie that you've been told. This is for you. This belongs to you. Anyway, sorry. Portrait of Ross in LA is just, it's a fantastic piece of fucking art. You've mentioned your great dislike of Avengers Infinity War a few times. What are the specifics of that? It's not a great dislike. Avengers Infinity War is a great popcorn movie. It was a wonderful payoff to, like, the sort of popcorn movie hype cycle of the MCU in, like, those first few phases, like Captain America, Iron Man, like, all of that shit. Like, great popcorn movie, great, like, big sort of stupid hype-ass payoff with a bunch of action scenes and, like, oh my god, Captain America with Thor's hammer, woo! Like, it's also just really fucking shallow. It's really shallow. It's pandering. It's actively very hostile to a lot of the other filmmakers in the MCU. Like, the shit, like, Thor Ragnarok did a lot to advance Thor's character and characterization, and then the Russo brothers came in with Infinity War and just kind of went, fuck you, actually. We're gonna shit on that. Oh, you think, like, oh, Thor doesn't need the hammer in order to be Thor. Fuck you, he needs the hammer. And also an axe. He needs all of the hammers. He needs everything. Because fuck you, right? Like, it was a really petty piece of work about a lot of the work that other filmmakers were putting into the MCU in some ways that I didn't like. And also, Thanos is a stupid villain, right? And it's fine. Like, it's fine that he's a stupid villain. It's a comic book movie. He doesn't need to be deep, but he's a stupid villain that the movie thinks is deep, and that annoys the shit out of me, because he isn't. It's like, yes, I saw him. I will need to kill half the people in the universe because the math of... It's just Malthusianism, and Malthusianism is stupid bullshit for dumb morons who don't know anything about anything. And even within the logic of the fucking MCU, Thanos' logic doesn't make any fucking sense. It's dumb. If you have the just make the same effect, Thanos, as killing half of everything in the universe. You could just make twice as much of everything in the universe. Same effect, because killing half the people at most just delays the problem a bit, but due to exponential factors, not that much. So you could just make twice as much resources. Surely, you dumb asshole. If that's like, if you're happy with such a half-assed half solution that's not actually going to solve the problem, just make more stuff with the dumbass motherfucking moron. As people are pointing out in chat, in the comics, Thanos wants to kill half the universe because he's trying to court Death, who's like a literal person in the Marvel Comics universe, right? Like, this is a person that he's trying to get to fall in love with him because he's a weird simp for Death. They should have just done that. They should have, instead of trying to pretend like he's some fucking intellectual villain who kind of has a point but who's going too far. No, he doesn't. He doesn't have a point. He's a stupid, dipshit, idiot, asshole moron, and anyone who works for him should have been able to see that. How does he have loyal followers? How? How in the world? Why do they believe any of this? Are they all that stupid? It's a good popcorn movie. It's just also bad politics and stupid characterization, and it thinks it's so much smarter than it is, and that's very annoying. Also, that fucking girl power moment where it's like, oh, it's all the MCU girls who, like, have the landing, and they kind of go, oh, let's go, girls. That's the worst brand of liberal-ass pop feminism, and I hate it so much. Just because it's so... The MCU has gender problems. Big gender problems. The way it treats its female characters is fucking shit. But it's like, hey, girl power moment in the big finale where the girls get to look cool and badass and do one thing and then never do anything ever fucking... fuck off. Fuck off, Disney. Fuck off. Endgame, Infinity... It's the same movie. It's one movie. They split it up into two parts to make more money off of it. Who cares? Let's see. Shoki, I've seen people bashing certain media for having romanticized portrayals of certain things like piracy, samurais, knights, and stuff. What place does romanticism have in storytelling, if at all? I mean, it's a little more complicated than that. Like, when people criticize something for romanticizing something, it's usually because they portray it in a way that doesn't fully engage with what the thing is, right? The samurai, for example. The samurai are a warrior conqueror class, right? And they aren't that different from other feudal classes in the world. Like, not to say that samurais and, like, European feudalism are the same. Not at all. There's very distinct, very specific cultural differences to those things. But also, they're a bunch of people who ruled Japan by saying, give us your shit and let us be in charge of things or else we kill you, right? That's what it was. Just as surely as it was with, like, medieval, like, European knights, and just as surely as it is nowadays with modern states. Like, it's just a monopoly on violence that leads to governance by an oppressive overclass. They're not special in that way, right? And a lot of samurai media, unfortunately, engages very uncritically and goes, no, the samurai are the soul of Japan. They're this very special, quasi-mystical, magical thing that's tied into the very, like, bones and the soul of the country, and Japan could never be Japan without the samurai. They're intricately tied in. They're, like, representatives of the life. Ghost of Tsushima is a great example, right? Ghost of Tsushima explicitly positions the samurai as, like, inherently, specifically connected to the very nature of Japan, the very land, the blood and the soil of Japan, as it were, right? As this very special, divinely ordained class of masters over the Japanese countryside, who, like, represent the spirit and the nature of the land in some way. And that's Japanese imperialistic propaganda, as someone's pointing out in chat, right? Like, that's just what that is. And romanticism sometimes doesn't engage with any of the problems inherent to the thing, right? And that's what people criticize when they do that. Like it's not that it's bad to tell a samurai story or a story where, like, that where you really appreciate and are fascinated by, and you're expressing an interest and a love for what the samurai are and what they were and where they came from. It's just, if you do that, you should be very careful that your perspective is informed by a nuanced and complex understanding of what the thing is, and not just a representation of certain fantasies that might have a political dimension that maybe, if you're not dealing with that political dimension in your storytelling, it can lead to, like, your story can accidentally become propaganda for something you don't believe in, even though you weren't trying to do that, right? Like, that's the thing. There's plenty of place for romanticism. There's plenty of place to romanticize pirates and samurais and knights and stuff in media. You can do that, no problem. It's just, if you're gonna tell a story about, like, oh my god, it's so beautiful and romantic and wonderful, the samurais, the pirates, the knights and all of that, your story, or at least you as an author, should have a complex understanding of what the thing is, and not just replicating tropes and, like, dominant cultural narratives without thinking about them, right? So that's what it is. Like, it's not that there's no place for romanticism, it's just that romanticism should be informed, right? It should be informed, and it should be based on not necessarily, like, hard, realistic reality, but based on a realistic understanding of the world and the subject that's being written about, at least in my opinion. Kenji the Sneck, what do you think are some of the most important or least important parts of fight animation or choreography that can make or break a scene? Especially in stuff like fighting game animations or TV shows like Ruby, which are or were known for having good fight animation. Clarity. If you want something that can make or break a fight's clarity, like, can the audience see what the fuck the character is doing? If the answer is no, then nothing else matters about the fight. It doesn't work, right? Like, unless the whole point of the scene is that you can't see what the fuck is going on, then no. Like, clarity is, for fight choreography especially, clarity is so fucking important. Because without clarity, you can't tell the story of the fight. If people can't see what's happening, and this is something I talked about, well, in the reaction to the to the Hell of a Boss episode, actually, the latest one, Ghost Fuckers, that, like, a good fight scene is a story. It's a story that's being told. It's a dialogue between characters. They're communicating something with one another. They're not just throwing they're not just throwing strength at each other and whoever is the strongest wins. That's not what a fight scene is. It's a dialogue. It's a conversation. Think of, here's a good one. The fight between Naruto and Gaara at the Chunin exams, right? That's a story that's being told between these two characters. It's not just two characters throwing their kaijus at one another. It's about this Gaara and his philosophy of total isolation and loneliness, and, like, that he can never be anything other or more than a monster, and, like, he can never be anything other or more than a vessel for the one-tail monster inside of him, right? And Naruto going, no, fuck you, we can be a part of a community, we can be a person, we can be so much more than this, we don't have to be defined by it. Wake up! That's the end of the fight. He wakes him up, literally. It's a conversation. It's a dialogue. Besides being a cool fight scene with a bunch of cool stuff that happens, it's a conversation, right? And clarity is incredibly important for that. If it's not clear to the audience what happens, then you can't use what happens to tell a story. So I'd say clarity is a very, very important thing. Jester DeMille, as someone who's hoping to make a game in the future and currently in the process of concepting World of the Science, what do you find important in the design of a game's protagonist? That's way too broad. I don't know how to answer that, because it's very different from a FPS to an JRPG, right? Like, or a tactical RPG. The character design needs are kind of defined a lot by the mechanics that they're supposed to engage with. Like, think of Gordon Freeman, right? Gordon Freeman has a character design. It's iconic because it's just associated with a really, really important and beloved game. But Gordon Freeman's character design isn't really that important to Half-Life, right? Like, it's not really that much a part of the storytelling of Half-Life. The suit, absolutely. Gordon Freeman himself, white man with brown hair and glasses, not really, right? If you're doing a silent protagonist, that's a different character design need than if you're doing a protagonist that actually has a personality and a specific individuality to them, right? If you're doing a customizable player protagonist, that's a different thing, right? It really depends. Like, your character design has to match the game that you're making. It has to match the genre that you're working in. So I can't really give you any, like, the most important thing is they have to have a side cut and earring. Like, I'm sorry, there isn't really anything more specific I can tell you. Yeah, Mamat, considering getting into Panic at the Dojo, and I want to get into the Final Fantasy XIV TTRPGs, and there's something that's been nagging at my mind recently. Why do people say that 5e is easy to get into, but I can't make heads and tails of how the classes work, action point system, spell slots, and the general balance? Yeah, D&D 5e is the easiest RPG to get into because D&D 5e is the only RPG that most people in the world have heard of. That's it. Like, most people in the world that have heard of a TTRPG have heard of D&D. They know about wizard, fighter, thief, right? They kind of understand the tropes of that because they've seen it in a million TV shows where, like, people are sitting there, I cast fireball, roll dice, right? What 5e has is an ability to circumvent the barrier of what the fuck is a TTRPG. If you want to get someone into TTRPGs for the first time, you need a way to explain to them what the fuck it is. And if you try to explain to them, like, Powered by the Apocalypse or Masks or, like, anything, people go, oh, so it's like Dungeons and Dragons. And you kind of go, well, yes, but no, except you'd use different dice, and it's like, oh, so you don't roll the dice with the many numbers? No, sometimes you use a d20, but it's a d... Like, because D&D is the frame of reference. That's why it's easy. Like, that's why it's the easiest one. It's because there's a huge, broad base of general cultural knowledge about it, right? It's the same way that, like, soccer is one of the easiest games in the world to play because you can go anywhere and everyone everywhere knows the rules of soccer, right? But the reason they know that is because soccer is one of the most ubiquitous game in the whole entire world, right? Everyone knows what soccer is because everyone is exposed to soccer all the fucking time. Also, D&D has been around for like 30 years or whatever, right? That's why it's easy to get people into. That's why it's easy to play, right? Because everyone already kind of knows the rules by sheer exposure, right? So D&D is kind of the same way. Everyone kind of knows what D&D is. Like, the barrier of unfamiliarity isn't there for D&D in the way that it is for World of Darkness or Masks or any of those one-person RPGs that you can sort of play with yourself or, like, whatever, like Blades in the Dark. It's easier to get people to engage with D&D 5e. It's not easier to play, but it's easier to get people to engage with it. That's my opinion anyway. Right? And so D&D 5e is often the gateway, right? That people start with because it's the one they kind of understand and sort of, oh, I know what a TTRPG, what D&D is, and I can kind of figure out how to play that, and I've been thinking about, right? And then from there, they use that as a springboard to get into all kinds of other RPGs, and then they develop a lot of opinions about which one is the best and most easy RPG to learn. But a lot of people start in D&D because D&D is the one with the lowest barrier to entry, not on a mechanical level, but on a cultural level. That's my opinion anyway. Nibelung, have you heard of the Brazilian Hatsune Miku trend? Yes, I have. This is from a little while ago, obviously. And being the catalyst about the Miku Earth fan page where local artists from the whole world draw their own local... Yes. God, that was good. That was so much fucking fun. That ruled so hard. That was a wonderful moment in online fandom. That was a wonderful moment. Like, and I love that it was Brazilian Miku specifically, because, like, of course it is. Of course it was Brazilian Miku. Like, there's no nationality on Earth that will get more excited about something than the fucking Brazilians, right? Like, oh, a thing but Brazilian? Vamos Brazil! Right? Like, they show up, right? And then they start drawing art, and then they start iterating on it, and then they spread it around, and, like, they make it a thing. And it's because of that wonderful cultural enthusiasm from Brazil that this thing took off and became as big as it did. It's because the Brazilians were so loud and so happy and so cool about it. And it was a wonderful moment in fandom. I really loved that. Discourse happened. I know, of course, discourse happened. It always does. But that was wonderful. That was so much fun when that was, like, really going. And it's because, like, the Brazilians have some of the best online meme culture in the world, right? Them and the Filipinos. Rain for Cats. Sorry if this is silly and I hope not too general, but I struggle to process the following question and give myself an answer. A, why are there no good billionaires? And B, why ACAB? Okay, so, I mean, there's a million leftists who will give you a 5-hour lecture on why this is. I'll try and do the short version. Basically, in order to acquire wealth the equal of $1 billion, there is no way, physically speaking, that a person can do enough work to generate that much value, right? Materially speaking, there's no work that you can do that can ever generate $1 billion worth of actual material value in the world. So the only way to acquire money in the billions is to exploit it out of someone else, right? And that's usually through capitalism, which is you use your money to purchase the means of production, then you pay other people less than the value of their labor to produce using those means, and then you pocket the difference. That's basically how capitalism works, right? So the only way to acquire $1 billion is to exploit other people for it. Like, there is no way to do that through your own hard work and labor. You might be able to become a millionaire that way, like genuinely through your own hard work and labor, like by generating $1 million worth of value. Billionaire, not so much. Maintaining that level of wealth, there's no way to do it except through exploitation. That's the very short version, right? And then corollary to that is that in a capitalist system, money is also power, right? Money gives you political power. It gives you material power. It gives you access to the levers of power. It allows you to change legislation. It allows you to manipulate culture, right? And that's not even necessarily because you are evil at heart. It's just when you occupy that class position, you just inherently have more power than everyone else, and that's undemocratic. That's undemocratic. Like, one person just having more power than everyone else because they happen to have a bunch of money, that's undemocratic. That is unfree. That is against the concept of political and like ideological freedom as a whole. And so it's a bad thing when there are billionaires, right? Add on top of that the fact that there are people who are starving right now. There are people who are dying right now because they're starving. There are people who are homeless. There are people who can't get their fucking insulin because of the capitalist exploitation of the billionaire class, which is keeping the price of insulin artificially high in the medical industry. If there was no poverty in the world, if no one was dying of thirst or hunger, if no one was out on the street, if no one suffered deprivation, maybe we could talk about having billionaires. Maybe we could discuss it. Maybe we could discuss the concept of some people might be allowed to have $1 billion. If we didn't have a political system that privileges wealth as a source of power above and beyond just the power of your political consent, maybe we could discuss maybe having billionaires. If we didn't have a system where being a billionaire gave you power over other people's lives that you don't deserve to have. But we don't live in that world, so billionaires bad. ACAB is much the same thing, right? Like, a lot of people, the argument with ACAB is like, but I know a cop who's a good guy, right? What about a cop who's trying to do the right thing or be a good man? And it's like, that doesn't really matter, because it's not about, is there a good police person individually or someone who has good intentions or is trying to do the right thing? It's about, what does this thing do? What does this system of power do in society? And what the police is the state's monopoly on power that they apply to their population, right? if you have a political system where there is injustice, where there is inequality, where some people are denied their rights by means of the law, for example, if you have slavery. Let's take slavery as an example. If you have a society where slavery is legal, then anyone who tries to get rid of slavery is a criminal. And the police's job is to punish those criminals, right? And so the police are a pro-slavery institution in a society where slavery is legal. Right? And that's the same thing all the way down, right? If you have a society where there is an unjust law, and there is unjust laws in every society, that's a feature of the state as a thing, then the police are the enforcers of that injustice. They are the enforcers of that unfreedom, right? They are the enforcers of that cruelty. That's what they are for. That's what they do. And the way that they enforce it is with violence. They are the state's monopoly of violence as applied to the population. And anarchists and socialists and communists will all get mad at me because I'm botching this explanation, or they want me to refer to this or that theorist specifically. But on a very basic level, the police are how the state does violence to the people. And the state, as a system of power, is always based on some level of injustice. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm not necessarily an anti-state anarchist, but the police are the ones who enforce that power. And critically, we don't have to have cops. We can have other means of law enforcement than the police. We can have other means of like dealing with the problems and the jobs that the police are technically supposed to do than the police. Right? It like our way of enforcing the law, our way of dealing with like with enforcing justice, maintaining justice in the society, it doesn't have to be cops. There are other ways to do things. It doesn't have to be the police. It doesn't have to be the cops. They are not a necessity just because we have law, right? So all cops are bastards because the thing that they are a part of is necessarily an enforcement of injustice. And much in the same way, like, imagine a puppy kicking factory, right? Imagine there's a factory where the product they produce is they kick puppies, right? And you go, well, all puppy kickers are animal abusers. You don't go, well, but there's someone at the puppy kicking factory who's actually really nice to the puppies, and he kicks them as softly as he possibly can, and he puts on really soft shoes, and he doesn't want to kick them, and he wants the puppy kicking to stop, actually. He's trying to reform from the inside. He still works at the puppy kicking factory. He's still an animal abuser. Even if he has the best of intentions, and even if he's trying to be as nice about it as he possibly can, he still works at the puppy kicking factory, and the product that he produces is still animal abuse. Yeah, one of the puppy kickers actually owns a dog, and he treats it very nicely at home. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if one of the puppy kickers is a nice person. He works at the puppy kicking factory where the product they produce is kicking puppies. He's an animal abuser because it's animal abuse, right? There's a much, 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 much more complicated discussion to be had about what justice looks like in a better society, what it looks like in an uncapitalist society, what it looks like even what better justice systems could look like in a capitalist society. I'm not competent to have those discussions, but on the very, very basic level, billionaires and cops are bad pretty much for the same reason, which is that they occupy a position in an unjust system where they enforce and reinforce and create those injustices and make them worse by the nature of the position they occupy in the system, right? That's why. That's why these things are bad. In my opinion, again, leftists will give you long lectures about 100 million different ways to define this problem and how to see it, but that's the thing as I understand it. Have you ever loved a piece of media that you feel is just okay or maybe even mediocre? Yeah, League of Legends. Anything that, from a critical point of view, you can't easily recommend without setting heavily tempered expectations, but which you are still deeply and unapologetically passionate about, despite those critiques for any reason relating to your personal taste. Yeah, League of Legends. How it's personally affected you, or any other such reason with minimal effect on how most critics would engage with it. League of Legends. That genuinely is the answer. It's League of Legends. Yeah, no, like, I would never tell anyone to get into League of Legends ever. Like, I occasionally get comments from people saying, because of you, I got into League of Legends and I've been playing it. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Fuck, this is why I'm going to hell. Like, I get to the gates of heaven and St. Peter will just pull up a list of people that I made play solo queue, and opens the trap door and down I go. Yeah, hello, Shed. I'm sorry. I can never take this back. Um, this is my original sin forever. But it is League of Legends. Like, and I could, again, Marvel movies. Like I said, I have my criticisms of fucking Infinity War and Endgame and all that shit. I could rant about all the shit I think that's wrong with them for hours. Same thing with comics, right? But I still read it, and I still love it, and I still enjoy it. I wouldn't recommend it, but I still do. There's a bunch of sort of like low-effort, trashy sort of pulp manga that I read that aren't good. But it's my kind of trash, and so I'm shovel it into my face. I can't get enough of it. Would never recommend it to anyone because it's all problematic and it's all shitty. And it's all, like, in various ways, low quality. Like, there's a fuck ton of fucking isekai manga I have read that are trash, and they're garbage, and they're bad, and they're not worth engaging with, really. They have nothing interesting to say, but still, my trash. Nom, 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 nom. So, yeah, plenty of that. Let's see. Have you ever taken the time to read the book or listen to the audiobook of The Locked Tomb, if you ever heard about it? I just bought the ebook of that recently. It's in my Kindle app. I'll get around to it eventually. And then finally, this is the final question from the fucking Q&A room. God, there was a lot, because it's been since April. Local, are we ever going to get an Arcane Act 3 breakdown? Yes. Yes, you just might. I think it's possible that you will get that. I think I think there's a good chance that if you check my channel, it might be there at some point soon. Anyway, that was 2 hours of this crap. Anyone in chat have any questions? You're halfway through the Arcane breakdown. Oh, man. Like, good job that you got that far. I see we're talking about, like, law enforcement in chat. Yeah, I don't want to engage with that. When it comes to the magical girl genre, what kind of themes would be appropriate for a more mature case? The most common themes of magical girls involve the coming of age tropes from a femme-queer perspective. Characters usually trend younger. What would be a good point of reference to aid in an aged-up version of a magical girl story? I don't really know that that's true, what you just said. I don't know that this is, like, there's definitely a bunch of them that have coming-of-age tropes from a femme-queer perspective, but, like, I'm thinking of Madoka Magica right now, right? I think of Utena, which, like, no, that's not a magical girl thing. That's that's the other thing. I'm thinking of something else. It's not Utena. It has another title. It's named something else. I can't remember what it is. Fuck it, doesn't matter. Magical girl is not... What kind of themes would be appropriate? Well, I don't think there's, like, a thing of appropriate or inappropriate themes for a magical girl story. I think you can explore anything through any genre. It's a matter of execution, not really about, like, the fundamental nature of the tropes. If you have a thing you want to explore through magical girls, you can just do that. You don't need to have the right trope in order to justify using the genre. Some of them are more effective in, like, anything that has, like, if you want to do a story about, like, a queer identity, having a story where a character has a secret identity that they transform into, that absolutely works. But that's also every superhero story, right? You can do that with werewolf stories as well, right? It's not something that's really unique or specific to magical girls, I don't think. So, like, I don't think there's anything such thing as, like, oh, these themes are appropriate for a mature... Like, no, any theme you want. It's a matter of, can you execute it? Can you put this together in a way that it flows satisfyingly and that it has something interesting to say? So, yeah. How are the cats doing? They're doing well. They're being assholes. They're being monsters. They're ruining my life, frankly, completely. They're destroying me, emotionally and physically, and I adore them. They are the best thing in the world. Have you seen Alien Stage? Nope. Do you have any tips on how to deal with low attention span on unmedicated ADHD? Get fidget toys. Fidget toys are good. Reaching for one. I've got a bunch of them on my desk. I have, like, a little squishy ball. I have it's a little plastic chain thing where you can sort of unlink the chain links and you can link them back together and you can shape it into various ways that, like, they bend on these, like, on these joints, so you can make little shapes out of it and you can fiddle around with it. You can, like, spin it around your finger. and do shit. And I have that, and that's very helpful. That helps me focus on things. ADHD focus music on YouTube. Like, there's various sort of isochronic tones, I think they're called. They are very helpful for me. They don't work for everyone, but they're very helpful for me when sort of getting my brain to shut up for a second so I don't have to do stimulation seeking all the time. And like, don't bring your phone everywhere. I know it's that's hard advice to follow. I know this. I take it with me everywhere too. But if you have a problem where your phone is constantly distracting you everywhere you go, don't bring your phone with you. I know that's not helpful advice on the face of it, but it's something like, make that a project. Don't bring the phone. Don't bring the phone to the bathroom. Don't bring the phone where you go. If you go somewhere, put it on airplane mode, turn it off, do whatever the fuck you have to make it inaccessible to you. And then, once the phone is out of the picture, find other coping mechanisms where you are. Like that, because you have to practice them. You have to practice finding ways to cope and focus your attention in various situations. And if the phone is becoming an obstacle to that, you have to put it away so you can practice finding other ways to let it out. And so long as you have the crutch of the phone, if that's a problem for you, you're never going to get over it. So you have to force yourself away from it and practice. Have you seen the One Piece fan letter yet? No, I have not. I might watch it for a reaction, but I don't know that I could put that on YouTube. Are you familiar with The Wandering Inn? I've heard the title. I don't know what it is. What are your thoughts on the current state of esports? Pop. Boo. Bubble. It's a bubble. It's been a bubble for a long time. It remains a bubble. Riot is very actively propping up the League of Legends side of esports. But esports as a whole, and it's very much also Blizzard and Bobby Kotick's fault that it came this far, such a bubble. Such a huge, unstable, untenable bubble. And the moment interest rates rose above 0%, it all started tumbling and crumbling and coming down. Riot is subsidizing their own esport because it's a big part of their marketing arm. And that's probably going to stay reasonably stable as such things go. But esports as an industry, as like as a thing, as a whole unto itself, no, don't get into that. Don't make that your career if you can avoid it. Because that's not stable, that's not safe. Because that's a vanity industry that's been propped up by an infinite supply of fake money, basically, forever. That money has dried up. It's going away. And, like, at this point, the only sources of that free money that still exist are, like, the fucking Saudis. Who you don't want to get in bed with. Riot fucking Games. I saw on Blue Sky you mentioned you were about to start reading Gideon the Ninth. Again, I have it on my Kindle app. When do I read it? I don't know. Have you seen Adam Ellis's comics? Yes, I have. He has transitioned quite well after his BuzzFeed career. He's quite good at it, even though he still gets... Boy, he gets a lot of hate, that guy. I have a bad habit of using my face as a fidget toy. That's why you need a fidget toy. I'm shaking it in front of the camera that you can't see right now. That's why you need a fidget toy. It's because otherwise you bite your nails, or you chew your lips, or you scratch your face, or like you pull your hair, or do something. You have to get some toys that you can abuse instead. Please, it's very healthy for an ADHD person. Childish toys, little child toys that just make your brain happy. Esports is just like NFTs. No, not quite NFTs. Like it has actual utility in the world. But it's been a tech bubble that's like dangerous. Have you heard of Epic the Musical? I've listened to it on repeat in my playlists for like months now. Yes, I am familiar. And yes, I've heard the most recent one. And yes, I have thoughts about it. And yes, maybe I'll do some kind of reaction video about it. I've never listened to the Magnus Archives. No. And it's too long, and I don't think I want to get into it, because it's too much. I don't have time. I have too many things. I can't do any more things. That's the same thing. Like, people ask me so many, like, have you ever heard about, or would you ever do videos about, and I don't have an answer to that, because I have too many things. There are too many things. I don't have time for more things. Do you see how behind I already am on all of the things? I don't have time for more things. I will not commit to more things. I won't get into more things. Please, for the love of God, don't tempt me. Like Gandalf trying to push away the ring, like, don't tempt me, Frodo. I would read this thing with a desire to make content. put through me. If you were to continue English academia, what would you want to study? English literature. Like, I got my degree, a bachelor degree in English general. I would want to do literature. There goes my Brandon Sanderson suggestion. I am not getting into Brandon Sanderson. Have you seen how many books that man writes? It's so many. They're so big. God, no, absolutely not. Do you want me to die? Again, Unseelie, no. I am not taking on any more things. I am not committing to any more things. I am not doing it. I cannot. My opinion on psychological horror? I have no opinion on the genre. It's just a genre, like any other genre. A specific work, I might have an opinion on, but not the thing as a thing. It's just a thing. If TV Sky were to dive into book stuff, Discworld is right there. I've read every single Discworld book a million times. At this point, I don't know that I ever want to make content about it. Anyway, it feels like this is winding down a little bit. I don't think there's a lot more questions from the audience, so thank you all very much for watching. I'll try to do this more frequently so there's not 100 billion questions in every single fucking one of these. And I'll be back with another QA thing at some point later, probably. Bye.